3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Live from the Play Show, yet not overly ostentatious studios of the Infinity Sports Network here in beautiful New York City, sitting on top of the 10th floor of 345 Hudson Street. Welcome on in to what is a Tuesday edition of the Zach Gelb Show across all the great local Infinity Sports Network affiliates, Sirius XM, Channel 158, the free Odyssey app, and of course, streaming live on YouTube. 855-212-4227 is the number to jump on in. That's 855-212-4227. You could always get at me on Instagram, where I'm straight flexing, or via the good old cesspool of Twitter, X, at Zach Gelb. That is ZACHGELB. A whole lot to do today. Maddux Madsen, the Boise State quarterback, is going to stop by 20 minutes from now. And then coming up at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific time, former NFL general manager Thomas Dimitroff will join us as we'll do a little NFL trade deadline recap with the deadline coming up 59 minutes from now. We also have to talk about the first installment of the all-new college football playoff rankings, which is not as important as in years past because of the fact that 12 teams do get in. But tonight, not only do you get the college football playoff rankings coming out, you also have the trade deadline that's going to expire and come and go in about an hour. And there's something going on in the political world with some election that people are telling me about between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. But I got to start with the football game last night. It was disappointing. And I pretty much nailed the game. I said Chiefs were not going to cover the spread. Chiefs would win in a close one, but Baker Mayfield was going to compete his ass off. And I saw in the chat before the show, Jesus just was slamming Baker Mayfield. And I'm like, what game were you watching last night? Baker Mayfield and Tiki Barber, the former NFL running back who's a colleague of ours, he co-signed this before the start of the show when we were having this conversation in the newsroom. Baker Mayfield is one of the more, if not the most, underrated quarterbacks in the NFL. This dude last night went into the belly of the beast of the Kansas City Chiefs without Mike Evans and without Chris Godwin. And he competed his tail off, and he was good enough to lead that team to victory. Baker Mayfield, though, with the energy that he brought, was nowhere close to being met by his head football coach. Todd Bowles last night, and Todd Bowles is a Temple guy. I have met Todd Bowles a few times in person. I like Todd Bowles. And I thought he was deserving of another chance as a head coach in this league, even though he has no personality and he needs to show some emotion on the damn sideline. But Todd Bowles last night had to say, F it. Todd Bowles last night had to say, Baker, you're leading this team. Baker, you're doing an incredible job. I don't care if we're without Mike Evans or Chris Godwin. It doesn't matter. We're going to be super duper aggressive. Because it was another game where the Kansas City Chiefs looked at their opponent and they said, we'll mess around. We'll try to give you an opportunity to go win this game. And there were moments and situations that were presented to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers where it looked like they could win the game. And Todd Bowles, when his quarterback was like, here we go, I deliver, I'm the man, let's go for it right at the 2-yard line, let's go for 2. That's what should have happened. But the head football coach was afraid and was unwilling to match the intensity of his quarterback. This loss last night for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that drops them to 4-5 is all on Todd Bowles and nobody else. And the Kansas City Chiefs are 8-0, and you know what's so damn scary? They have not played a complete football game yet. Patrick Mahomes, I know he was good late. He left the game with an injury. And it's crazy. When Mahomes gets hurt, and I'm glad that this is the case, that it wasn't as bad as it appears, but it seems like all of his injuries are not that bad as what they appear in the moment. Like when there was no contact and he needed help walking off the field, I'm like, bare minimum, Mahomes is going to be out for 3 to 4 weeks, if not more than that. And that building, you could hear a pin drop in it, because even though Carson Wentz is like a decent backup in this league, you're not winning jack with Carson Wentz. You're not going back to back to back with Carson freaking Wentz. And then Mahomes didn't even miss a snap, and he was right back on the field for the next drive. It kind of reminded me, I was working at NFL radio at the time in the 2019 football season. When Mahomes went down, I want to say it was up against the Broncos on a Thursday night football game, and people thought he was done for the rest of the year. He only missed 2 lousy weeks. So whenever Mahomes gets injured, in a weird way and in a thankful way, it's not as bad as what it appears. But let me get back to Todd Bowles, because there was 3 moments in the game last night, and this is not me second guessing. This is not, let's let it play out and then be like, I'm a genius. Todd Bowles is a moron. You guys know me well enough. When I am criticizing coaches, I give you my feel and I give you my take of how I feel in the moment. I don't do this thing of, I'll be 50-50 on the take if you should go for it or not. And then let's see how it plays out. And then if it works, I won't say anything. But if it doesn't work, I'll be the first one yelling into a microphone. So I'll give you 3 moments last night where I was so annoyed with Todd Bowles. 2 of them, I was right on. 1 of them, I will admit, I was dead wrong on. 4th and 2. 12:48 remaining in the fourth quarter. Mahomes just tied up the game with the touchdown. You punt the football? I know you're at your own 38-yard line, but that's even in a territory where you could go for it. That started Todd Bowles being passive and not being aggressive last night. And what happened after they punted the ball? Well, Kansas City marched right down the field, 15 plays, 78 yards. They took off nearly 9 minutes off the clock, and they took a 7-point lead. So then Tampa Bay gets the ball back. They go 3 and out. And they had a penalty. Or no, Baker took a sack. And even with it being 4th and 16 at Tampa Bay's 24-yard line, I thought, even though it's a low conversion rate opportunity, I thought that Todd Bowles had to go for it there because of who's on the other sideline. And with 2:48 left in the game, the odds of getting the ball back, even with your timeouts and a 2-minute warning, I didn't think were good. Now, Kansas City got super duper conservative. Kareem Hunt could get nothing, and you end up only wasting 13 seconds, and you got the ball back. And with 2:16 left, you get the ball back. Baker Mayfield, like a hot knife through butter, marches right down the field with no one at wide receiver. Like, Cade Otton's a good tight end, don't get me wrong, but when Sterling Shepard is making plays, that's something that I did not have on my bingo card. You have no Evans, you have no Godwin. And your defense, even though they just made a stop, they were starting to leak in that second half. And Baker Mayfield walks right down the field, takes him to the 1-yard line, where Baker completed a pass to Trey Palmer, goes for 19, gets down to the 1, and there is 27 or 30 seconds left. You have a timeout remaining. You don't need to take the timeout there. That was another, that was the 4th error, I thought, of Todd Bowles, and I'll get to, 3 and 4, but that was the 3rd, I would say, error that I thought Todd Bowles made. You don't need to take the timeout there. You could let the clock run, and you could run a play, or you could spike it and have it be 2nd and goal at the 1 or the 2. And that's fine. But those 27 to 30 seconds are so big because if you score, regardless if you go for 2 or not, you're giving the ball back to Mahomes. He completes a pass or 2, probably 2. They're in field goal range with Harrison Butker. So taking that time out there, I thought was unnecessary. And then Baker Mayfield delivers a touchdown pass, and your quarterback had a great moment. You're down by 1. And here's the decision. Do you take the extra point, and do you leave it up to chance that your defense makes a stop, and then also you win a coin toss, and then you get the ball and you drive right down the field and you score a touchdown up against a great Chiefs defense? Like, look at all those things that have to go right. You have to make a stop. You then have to win a coin toss. And then you have to score a touchdown to go win the game. Or you got to make a stop. You lose the coin toss. And then you got to hold Kansas City to a field goal and then score a touchdown. Or score a field goal to match it, and then it's okay. Then you got to make a stop, get the ball back, then kick a field goal. Look how many things need to go on the decision to take the extra point. Instead, all you needed to do was go for 2, convert the 2, and make a stop with 27 seconds left. That's it. And now they elected to pass up on one play at the 2 to basically go win the game or put you in position to win the game, and then trust that other dominoes are going to fall your way. And this isn't up against like the Indianapolis Colts, or the Carolina Panthers, or the New England Patriots, or the Las Vegas Raiders, right? Or the New York Jets. This is up against Kansas City. This is up against Patrick freaking Mahomes, where all they've done this year is play close games, look sloppy, and then when push comes to shove, they walk away with a perfect record, even though they have not played perfect games. And Todd Bowles last night acted like a coward. He coached as if he was afraid of the Kansas City Chiefs. He was shaking on the sideline, and he had urine coming down his leg. Instead, Baker Mayfield was a warrior on the field, without Evans, without Godwins, and he went into the beast that is Kansas City, and he said, I'm not afraid of you guys. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to win. And the shame of last night is an underrated quarterback in Baker Mayfield should have had a national moment last night where he gets all the praise and he beats Kansas City and he gives Kansas City their first unlikely loss of the season and their first loss of the season. Instead, the coach was like, we'll kick the extra point. And then, even though I'm a defensive genius, our defense won't make a stop once we lose the coin toss. And then night, game over, Kansas City. Even though they didn't go get a field goal, Kansas City then wins the coin toss and then takes the ball and shoves it right down your throat and right into the end zone, and they win the game. That's what annoys me last night. And it's not frustration with Kansas City. It's not getting annoyed at Kansas City. But they've been now for a year and a half begging someone to dethrone them, begging someone to take them down. And I used to live through this because my football team used to be the bully. And it's tough always being the bully. We're like, can someone just punch us in the face one day? And teams just mentally break down up against you. And they're afraid. But the problem is the players weren't afraid last night. The quarterback wasn't afraid last night. But your supposed leader, the head honcho, he wasn't ready for the moment. And it's a damn shame because Baker Mayfield last night just simply, with that performance that he put up at Arrowhead, up against the Chiefs, with Taylor Swift in the building, Jason Kelce having to apologize, which was ridiculous before the game, and all the other shenanigans that happened in Kansas City in those rainy conditions, Baker was ready for the moment. Todd Bowles was not ready for the moment. And that's just a fact. It was disgraceful and apprehension from a coaching standpoint by Todd Bowles. And now what you are? You're 4-5. You've already lost 2 games to the Falcons, and you could have had potentially a season-changing win and a statement victory up against Kansas City. But your coach needed to match the energy level of Baker Mayfield, and Todd Bowles was incapable of that. He coached not to lose the game. He didn't coach to win the game. Baker Mayfield played to win the game. But when your coach is coaching to not lose the game, guess what you do? You lose the damn game. Bad job by Bowles. Great job by Baker. And here we are, Kansas City, 8 games in, 8 wins. And we wonder if they could run the table this year. Zach Gelb here with you on the Infinity Sports Network, 855-212-4227, 855-212-4227. Boise State, their quarterback, Maddux Madsen, is going to join us on the other side.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
You're listening to the Zach Gelb Show.
The Boise State Broncos are 12th in the country in the Associated Press poll. We'll see where they rank tonight when the college football playoff rankings come on out. And their quarterback right now is going to be joining us, and Maddux Madsen, who's off a phenomenal performance this past weekend on Friday night up against San Diego State. 24 of 32 for 307 passing yards and 4 passing touchdowns. And Maddux is kind enough to join us right now. Maddux, appreciate the time. Thanks so much for doing this, and how you been?
I've been good. Yeah, I appreciate you guys for having me on.
Yeah,
really
thanks
good.
so much for coming on. So all your siblings are named after baseball players. Dad is a baseball coach, is my understanding?
Yes, sir. Every single one of us.
So can we go through the names if you don't mind?
Yeah. So my older brother, his name's Mickey Mantle. My sister, it was hard for my parents. We're all M's too. So my sister, her middle name's Joe after Joe DiMaggio, and then Greg Maddux, Mark McGuire, Willie Mays, and then Dale Murphy.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
that's really something. Now, I know you were a heck of a baseball player growing up, so kind of give me the baseball scouting report with your name being Maddux Madsen, because when you have that name, you got to end up being a pretty damn good baseball player.
Yeah, I didn't play middle infield though. I was a catcher, so I kind of kept that out of it. But I enjoyed baseball. I grew up playing it. My brothers obviously are still playing it. I got two younger brothers that are gonna go play at Utah Tech here after this year. So it's kind of funny. It's a baseball family. My older brother played at Utah Valley, and so I'm the only one that's gonna play football.
So how did you fall in love with football? Just wondering.
I kind of actually I had to beg my mom to play when I was younger. All of my buddies played, and then when I kind of started playing is when I really enjoyed it more than anything. And then when I got into high school after my junior year, I had an injury that made me miss baseball season, so I was really able to just like focus on football. And then that's kind of where I was like, I'm going to take this a lot more serious than baseball, and here I am now.
I'm just wondering, where does your competitive drive come from? Because clearly you're a work in progress. You keep on getting better and better. You keep on exceeding the expectations that people set for you. And I just saw, congratulations, by the way, that you were named this week the Mountain West Offensive Player of the Week. But where does that competitive drive come from? Because you play with a big chip on your shoulder, it seems like.
Yeah, I mean, growing up with a coach as my father, I think is one of the main things. I never was able to kind of take the easy way out, and that's kind of where I feel blessed. But also, props to the coaches that I've been able to be coached by. I talk to those guys all the time still, and there's huge impacts on my life. And then, realistically, growing up in a household of like four other brothers, that is where like the most competition was kind of bred. I would say we were always in a competition, no matter what we were doing. But I feel like the biggest part, and it's a props to my father of just like raising me in a certain way that there's not going to be an easy way taken, and the competitive drive comes from that.
I could only imagine what like the wiffle ball games were like in your backyard, or like the pickup football games in your backyard. It probably got pretty ugly, right?
Oh yeah, it was bad. And then when it got cold, we'd have like a bonus room upstairs, and that thing still has holes. My parents are waiting until all of my younger brothers move out to finally fix it up. But yeah, it was bad, but it was fun. It was super enjoyable.
Maddux Madsen here with us. The Boise State Broncos are ranked 12th in the country. They have their eyes set on making the college football playoff this year. Some of your favorite football players growing up, who were some guys that you kind of looked up to when you were a youngster?
I love to watch Drew Brees. Drew Brees was one of my favorite quarterbacks. And then I also love to watch Russell Wilson, especially when he was kind of in his prime with Seattle. That was big time. Nowadays, it's like I really just watch quarterbacks. I'm not really involved in like all these teams. And so I love to watch like Patrick Mahomes. I think that guy's a baller. Josh Allen. I even love to watch Brock Purdy because talk about like a game manager in that aspect. So those are some of my few, but I love to watch Drew Brees and Russell Wilson. Growing up, those were my guys. I remember I had a Seattle Seahawks lunchbox when I was in elementary school, and I loved that. I loved it.
For people that haven't seen you play yet, how would you describe your game? What are we getting when we turn on the Boise State Broncos and we see Maddux Madsen?
I think the biggest part of it kind of is just almost the understanding and IQ of the football game. And like, I understand personally that I can't win games by myself. And so when you turn on the games, you're going to see me doing like almost hitting checkdowns, but when deep passes are open, like I'm going to complete those. Operating at a high level is kind of a big impact. And I think not there's a lack of that in that position, but you see a lot of guys that kind of go ransom when like stuff's not going well. And I feel like I personally for myself, it's more of like a neutral. I'm going to chill whether things are going really good, and I'm going to chill when things are going really bad.
And how easy is it to kind of have that mentality? Because not everyone could have that mentality when Ashton Jeanty kind of sets the tone, because the way that he makes plays, he should have like the biggest ego in the world. And when I talk to him, he's like the most humble person that you meet. So how does that kind of set the tone for a team kind of aspect and a team environment, especially on the offensive side of the ball?
Yeah, 100%. I think offensively, confidence is a big deal for me, but I know confidence can't just be gifted. So understanding where confidence comes from, so whether it's how well are you preparing, do you have trust in certain guys, and like the preparation aspect comes from literally the spring of all the certain things that you're building up to understand, that like your confidence level kind of goes through that preparation aspect. And you see that in our offense, especially of like, we're going to do things really good. And when we're with our backs against the wall, it's almost that's where we're best.
I'm just wondering, and I know for most of the nation, now we're starting to see what type of player Ashton Jeanty is, but he was unbelievable for you guys last year. When did you realize, Maddux Madsen, that, man, we just have a freak of nature and one of the best players in the country, when you were starting to get to know Ashton Jeanty a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I just remember when I first was coming in here, I wasn't even here yet. He early enrolled, I wasn't even here yet, but I was in contacts, obviously, with coaches and stuff. And at the spring game, they mentioned like all this stuff about, everyone called him Deuce, right? Like Deuce is this, Deuce is that. And I was like, okay, this guy's legit. And I was able to come and watch fall camp. And I was like, this guy's really legit. This was my freshman year. And he really didn't get a bunch of touches like that, like he is now. And then even last year, we had two great backs that obviously George Helani and then Ash, like those guys had to split touches. And then it was cool. Like I always knew Ashton was really good from the moment I stepped in here, but now it's cool to see when he gets the amount of carries he does in games, and what he does with those carries is very intriguing. And I get the best seat in the house to watch it.
I know before the season, right, he had Heisman aspirations. This team was looking to win the conference right again. And if you do that, you set yourself up in the new format to potentially make the college football playoff. As we're well into the season now, and you guys are ranked as the 12th best team in the Associated Press poll. We'll see what happens tonight. Jeanty's getting a ton of Heisman play. Heck, I'm wearing a Heisman Ashton Jeanty sweatshirt right now that a listener sent to me, Jake from Boise State. And it's like you see all these things that are happening right now with this team. It's like, man, he can win the Heisman. Like, you guys can make the college football playoff this year. I know the job isn't done yet, but having that still all on the table this late in the season, just how do you kind of put that into words, and what does it mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, personally, it's a big deal. It's something that has never been done at Boise State before. And you look at Ashton's side of it, that is a real Heisman finalist, 100% in my mind. If he doesn't win, I'd be really shocked. Like, he is legit in what he's doing. People can put competition up against it, but it hasn't been done like that in a long time. And so that's where I see Ashton. But when it comes to the team aspect of it, it's tough, right? There's so many, like Coach G mentions all the time, we're getting pats on the back of how good we are. But we could go and lose next week, and then all of a sudden our hopes are all gone of what we want to do. And so it's really important for us to kind of keep the main thing. And with the goal at the end, we all have the goal, but how can we weekly impact that? How can we practice when it matters? How can we prepare with our teammates, watch film, certain things like that. And then when Saturday comes around, we're able to play free and do the things that we want. And then that's just one step closer to our goal. Coach D always mentions our biggest game's this next one, because that's all that matters. How can we learn from the last one? But our biggest game is this next one, because if we lose this next one, our goal at the end of what we want to do is just out of picture. And so that's where it's hard. It's difficult because, yeah, you want to get a little bit of praise, but we've got bigger aspirations than just a little pat on the back.
I want to take you back to the offseason, because when Malachi Nelson transferred over, I was like, okay, he's going to be their starting quarterback, and obviously it ended up being you. What was that quarterback competition like, and what's your relationship been like with him?
Yeah, I mean, talk about a good buddy is the best way to put it. Like, personally, I've always felt that there's no rhyme or reason of kind of being mean to people or leaving people out. And so from the moment he stepped in, I knew that he was going to be like, we sit and laugh all the time. Like, we have a good time. And that's what makes competition fun. There was never like complete just like hatred towards each other, like me against you.
Sure.
Like, we were working through things. And in my position in the spring, I wasn't really able to do much. So I was glad that I was kind of able to help him and in certain ways kind of gain an understanding of what we're doing here at Boise State, because it was a big change for him. But I think the biggest part, and I enjoy, is our relationship that we have with each other, where we can sit down and talk and chat and be real with each other, like have heart to hearts. So it's good. I enjoy that for sure.
For people that are still doubting you individually, when you're at your best, what type of football player do you ultimately can think you could be when you're at your apex?
Yeah, I mean, I always say my expectations are a lot higher than anyone else's. Even times where coaches like have expectations, I know personally my expectations are higher than anyone else's, and that's just kind of the way I was raised. And I think when I feel like I'm the best player I am, which I have never even seen in my entire life, it's an elite quarterback. And I'm just personally, I'm trying to continue to grow into that position, be the best I can, not only for myself, but more so for my team, because that's what this team needs. And especially when it comes down to crunch time, I need to be elite.
Everyone keeps on telling me that you have a very close relationship with Dirk Cutter, and we know he's on staff, obviously, and you work very closely with him, and he's been in a bunch of different places, both college and the NFL. How would you describe your relationship with him?
Yeah, I think it's awesome. It's funny. We've got a good relationship when it comes to football. I can sit and ask him questions, bring up certain things, and then on the flip side, when we're out at practice or in games, like it's on. Like we've built that relationship and trust to where I'm in this position where I enjoy being coached, but I know I can't be coached because of what we've kind of built over the last little bit. And I think that's a big thing. And from my understanding and what I'm trying to kind of get to in life, he's a guy that I got to have in my life because of his IQ and his knowledge and the way that he coaches is all big deals.
And then how about Coach Danielson as well? Because, man, he is a ball full of energy, and he's someone that's going to have a real bright future in this sport.
Yeah, he's a legit head coach. And I think you even look at last year and kind of when he stepped in as the interim and how that was flipped so drastically. Coach D kind of brings a side to football that most people don't understand is needed. As college athletes, you kind of lose the joy that comes from certain things because it almost feels like you're constantly doing the same thing over and over again, in which you are. We have a process throughout the week where our schedule really doesn't change, but Coach D does a great job when it comes to making guys enjoy this game. And that's a big deal. When you have 115 guys that enjoy football and want to be here, it's going to lead to great things beyond just on Saturdays. I know I've got relationships with so many guys because of how much I'm enjoying football now.
You know, I didn't think about this until you brought it up, but with Andy Avalos getting fired last year in the middle of the season, you guys still going on to win the conference, and then Spencer Danielson gets the full-time job. Just when you have a coach fired in season, just how much accountability was felt in that locker room, maybe make everyone just look in the mirror and dig a little bit deeper down the stretch?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because if you look at my freshman year, Coach Plow was let go after 4 games in. And that's where, like, Coach Cutter said it best. He was fired because we were underperforming as a unit. A lot of people come to this big thing that it's on coaches, but a lot of it, like, the coaches aren't playing when it comes to certain things. Yeah, there's a big deal about, like, how they're being towards people. And, like I mentioned, just the joy in this building. But it's hard. It's extremely hard. And when that comes around, it's like, almost how can you as players, like you just mentioned, take accountability for what we've done and move past that, but grow and learn to where we want to go. Everyone has goals, and we all know that. And goals are a big part of where you set yourself up for.
Last thing I'll ask you, to anyone still doubting this program and doubting if Ashton Jeanty can win the Heisman, what do you say to people doubting Boise State and also doubting that, hey, you could see Ashton Jeanty go edge out either Cam Ward or Dylan Gabriel or Travis Hunter to go win the Heisman?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I have been doubted my whole entire life. And so I don't find it very, impacting on me. But I know everyone in this building knows how good we really are. And then you talk about everyone that knows how good Ashton is. There's no reason to kind of doubt us anymore, I guess. Like, we've still got a lot to grow in and do certain things, but the level of play that we're playing at is something that I've never seen in my time at Boise State, and I'm excited for it to keep growing.
Is it tough? Because like you said earlier, right, with one loss, everything that we're talking about could be off the table. But is it tough not to like think ahead of how close you guys are to maybe accomplishing those goals that we discussed earlier?
Yeah, like I mentioned, it is difficult because you have these goals, and that's a goal that we have for ourselves at the end of the season, but how can we not get distracted by what we have to do now to actually achieve those goals? It's tough. It is hard, but I'm proud of our team for doing the things we do and kind of approaching each week as if it's our last.
Well, it's not a bad situation to be in. Your football team's been so fun to watch. It's been fun to see your growth this season. Good luck and good health the rest of the way. I appreciate you giving us a few minutes.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you.
You got it. There he is, Maddux Madsen joining us. Great stuff. Zach Gelb Show, Infinity Sports Network, across all of our great local Infinity Sports Network affiliates, Sirius XM, Channel 158, the Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube, and obviously we are local right now in Boise on KTIK, The Ticket. All righty, good stuff right there. Really enjoyed our conversation with Maddux Madsen. We'll take a break. We'll do some Superstar Shoutouts next. Update time first. Here's the Act Man, Rich Ackerman.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
And it's sponsored by Mint Mobile. Switch and get half off unlimited premium wireless at mintmobile.com/score. The Cowboys always seem to find the headlines, and this week it's how does a 3-5 team survive with its quarterback sidelined. Owner Jerry Jones told 105.3 The Fan that Dak Prescott is likely to head to IR with a hamstring injury. His team has lost 3 in a row. Now has Cooper Rush calling the signals, but Jones in his weekly radio spot said they can still turn things around.
There's no question that Dak's injury is a setback, but we've seen Cooper do it. We know what we need to do relative to the strategies on the offense. We just need to come together game by game, use all of our players to the extent it helps us.
The Cowboys picked up receiver Jonathan Mingo from the Panthers for a 4th-round pick, and the Commanders, building on their big start, sparked by a 7-2 record and 3 straight wins. They've acquired Pro Bowl corner Marshawn Lattimore for the Saints for a 3rd-round pick, a 4th-rounder, and a 6th-rounder as well. And the Lions going all in, bolstering their pass rush with the acquisition of 3-time Pro Bowler Zadarius Smith from the Browns. The Ravens sent defensive back Tre'Davious White to the Ravens. I'm Rich Ackerman.
This is the Infinity Sports Network. Follow us on X. Our handle is INF Sports Network. That's INF Sports Network on X.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining.
2 minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Another week in the books. Who stood out on the gridiron? We give you our Superstar Shoutouts right here on the Zach Gelb Show.
All righty, good stuff with Maddux Madsen. Appreciate him joining us. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network, and this portion of the Zach Gelb Show is brought to you by Ethos Life, the easy way to get life insurance in 10 minutes, up to $2 million in coverage with no medical exam and just a few health questions. Get your free quote at checkethos.com. Not available in all states. All righty, let's do Superstar Shoutouts right now. We will start things off in the college world. And this year, when we talk about the Miami Hurricanes in this segment, it's always been about one player and one player only, and that's Cam Ward. Well, I'm going to give a shout-out today to Xavier Restrepo, their wide receiver, who is now the all-time leader in receiving yards and also catches at the U, which is unbelievable with some of the talent that they've had. And this past Saturday, in a game where it looked like they weren't going to cover the spread of 21 or 21 and a half points, and it was a one-point game in the fourth quarter, they ended up winning the game by 22 points. And Xavier Restrepo, in his record-setting day, had 8 receptions for 146 yards and 3 touchdowns up against the Dukies. And after the game, Manny Diaz, who was his coach, is now the coach at Duke. He waited a long time on the field after the game to congratulate his former player. So Xavier Restrepo gets my Superstar shout-out this week. Stu?
All right. I know we just had him on, but I just had to give it to Maddux Madsen.
Sucking up to Boise State like your boy.
No, he's just been incredible, and kind of like you said, Cam Ward getting all the attention for Miami. We know Ashton Jeanty and how great he is, and he gets all the attention for Boise, but what Madsen has done, against San Diego State, 304 yards, 4 touchdowns, and on the season, 17-2 touchdown to interception ratio. He's been really good.
And you know what's wild? It still feels like he hasn't got the proper credit yet from the majority of Boise State Broncos fans because of the Oregon game and because of the slow start to his season. But the last few weeks, you're starting to see why this team and why this coaching staff believed in Maddux Madsen before the start of the season. And like I said to him, I never thought that he was going to win the job this offseason. I thought when Malachi transferred there, with his ranking in the past, that he was easily going to be the guy. But we got to see what Maddux Madsen was capable of the last few weeks. By the way, I'm going to give an extra shout out here. We're going to do like an extra credit. Omarion Hampton at UNC. Remember before the year we had Mac Brown on, and Mac Brown said he is the most skilled running back that he's ever coached? And I'm like, hold on, Mac. I know you're getting a little bit older now, but you did coach Ricky Williams. Like, that's how much he thought of this kid. Well, up against Florida State, who's been a disaster this year, he had 172 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns. Just on that alone is superstar shout-out material. He also added in 3 receptions for 93 yards and an additional tutty. So give him an extra superstar shout-out this week. All right, let's go to the college world and stay in the college world, but we flip from players to coaches. Shane Beamer gets a superstar shout-out this week. That team has been so close to getting a big win this year. You know, they had LSU in their building, and they should have beat them. Couldn't get the job done. They just lost to Alabama by 2 points, and this was a big year for Coach Beamer with the South Carolina Gamecocks, and he was on the hot seat, and I thought he had a program-changing, program-defining win up against A&M when everyone's slobbering over A&M, telling you how great Mike Elko and A&M is and Marcel Reed, and that game was tied going into halftime. South Carolina blew a lead. You saw A&M take the lead back, and then South Carolina got a field goal right before the end of the first 30 minutes. And then coming out of the gate in the second half, they just ran the Aggies off the field, outscoring them 24-0 in the second half. And you had South Carolina winning 44-20. And then after the game, it's the coach's wife's birthday. And they had the entire team serenade her with the Fantasia song. It wasn't like just happy birthday. It was unbelievable. So Shane Beamer not only has the goods on the field, off the field, you know, he's got some riz to him, coach. That video did like 3 or 4 million views online. So give Shane Beamer a superstar shout out. Stu?
All right, I'm going to go with Louisville head coach Jeff Brom. Now, they had a very nice game against Clemson, beating them 33-21 on Saturday. But just the overall season they've had, they're 6-3, but those 3 losses to Miami by 7, to Notre Dame by 7, and to SMU by 7. So even those are 2 of the best 10 teams in the country, 3 of the best 15 teams in the country. They've been in every game, and I think they'd be a lot better if their schedule wasn't as tough as it's been.
And who says you can't go home? Because Brom last year did a really good job in his first year back at Louisville. And this year, you got a big win up against Clemson. And right when people were starting to get back in on Dabo Swinney. Dabo, I'll be like that kid online. What happened, Dabo? What happened? All right, let's get to the NFL gridiron. Stu, can I ask you just an honest question, you being a Raiders fan?
Sure.
Who are you more upset with on Sunday? Joe Burrow or Trey Hendrickson?
Well, interesting. I'll say Trey Hendrickson.
Okay. So I will go with Trey Hendrickson as my superstar shout out this week. He had not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 sacks up against the Las Vegas Raiders. And he basically got the entire coaching staff on the offensive side of the ball fired too. 11 sacks on the season for Trey Hendrickson. And that is his 1, 2, 3, 4 multi-sack game of the season. Had 4 up against the Raiders, 2 up against the Brownies, 2 up against the Giants, and 2 up against the Kansas City. How about those Chiefs? So Trey Hendrickson gets superstar shout out. So can I just assume something?
Yeah, I think you can, yes.
I'm going to assume, like Anthony Rizzo assumed that Garrett Cole was going to cover the bag, and how Garrett Cole assumed that Anthony Rizzo was going to run to the bag.
Yeah.
Sorry, Stu, that wasn't nice of me. Is your superstar shout-out player of the week Joe Burrow?
It is Joe Burrow. Yes, he absolutely torched the Raiders. He is 27 of 39, had 5 passing touchdowns. And I know it's against the Raiders, but he's really had a good year for a Bengals team that obviously record-wise isn't what they'd hope they'd be at this point, but 20 passing touchdowns, which is 2nd in the league. He's now 5th in the league in passing yards, so he's kind of, he's Joe Burrow.
That's how you know Stu is really fed up with his football team, because I'll peel back the curtain a little bit. I send Stu my superstar shout-out players the morning of so we don't double up. And then I just hear his answers on the air, and I sometimes have an extra person in case if I think somebody else should get it as well. When I sent Stu Trey Hendrickson, usually we don't like to try to double up, but Stu was so disgusted with his football team and is just dying for his team to have a quarterback. So when you see good quarterback play, that's what really infuriates Stuart Kovacs, where in the second half, he had the game on mute. Like, he was watching, but he had the game on mute, and he had Red Zone on, And still Joe Burrow just absolutely tormented you in that football game. Hate to say it still. Hate to say it.
Yeah. I hate to watch it, so.
It's like really sad what the Raiders have done to you.
Yeah.
You're just defeated right now.
I am. And I don't even think they're going to be that good this year, but they're even somehow worse than I thought they'd be.
So the Yankees lost in the World Series.
Right.
The Lakers, they
had a decent start. They're coming back down to earth a little. It's also early. It's NBA regular season.
Hockey, your Devils aren't going to win a cup, but they're a good team, right?
Solid.
Yeah. Like they can make the playoffs.
Yeah.
Is your biggest hope right now the Irish?
It probably is. Honestly, it probably is. And we know what's going to happen. They're going to perform like they always do in the playoffs and lose to someone when they play someone good.
Yeah. All righty. Let me get to my coach, and it's Jonathan Gannon. The coaches in the NFL are the toughest one to do the Superstar Shoutout each and every week. I keep on wanting to go coordinators, but I've kept it to head coaches. And I'm going to go with Jonathan Gannon. His defense was awesome this past Sunday up against the Bears. Caleb Williams got sacked 6 times. He was 22 of 41 for 217 yards. And they held the Bears to only 69 rushing yards. The Bears didn't have an offensive touchdown. It was 3 field goals. Cardinals are 5-4. Cardinals have a chance to win the NFC West. Jonathan Gannon gets my Superstar Coaching Shoutout of the week in the NFL.
All right, and mine is Sean McVay. The Rams, they got off to a pretty tough start to the season, but they've won 3 in a row. They're up to 4-4. And their next 4 games, they got the Dolphins, Pats, Eagles, and Saints. So a couple winnable games there. So the Rams, your Rams, the team that you picked to get to the Super Bowl, could make a bit of a run here.
You said the Dolphins, Pats, Eagles, and Saints.
Yes.
I think the Dolphins game could be tricky. They should beat the Patriots, obviously. The Eagles game is a toss-up, and then you play the Saints, who just fired their coach.
Yeah.
Bare minimum, they should be 2-2 in that 4-game stretch.
Yeah.
If they get to 3-1, here we go, Rams. Here we go. Whose house? Our house. I think that's what they do. And I was at SoFi Stadium when they won the stadium up against the Bengals. And then afterwards, I thought it'd be raucous in the streets. But, there wasn't a lot of Rams fans at that Super Bowl. There were a good amount. And more Bengals fans than Rams fans. But, could you imagine if Philadelphia or the Minnesota Vikings had a home Super Bowl? Afterwards, it would be mayhem in the streets. And it was very casual in the streets walking out of SoFi Stadium that night. I did take a video when Joe Burrow, when the Rams scored a touchdown in the stadium, and I took a video of myself they don't know what they have happening. Joe Burrow, too much time left for Burrow. I was trying to have one of those viral social media moments that I would have posted if Joe Burrow would have had an extra half second, and found Jamar Chase down the right sideline, but that video went in the trash once Aaron Donald did what Aaron Donald does. All righty, we'll take a timeout. We will recap 5 minutes ago the NFL trade deadline when we come on back.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
I'm really distracted right now. I know, pencils down. The NFL trade deadline is coming past. But that's not why I'm actually distracted. A buddy of mine just sent me a video, and I knew that this was happening. I didn't know when and I didn't know where. But Bradley Cooper, who I have run into a few times when there used to be a Starbucks adjacent to our lobby, and then they got rid of the Starbucks and they renovated the entire front of the building. But there would be multiple times in like the last 4 years or so, because a lot of celebrities live in this area, where our offices are. Like Taylor Swift's not that far away from our studios. Bradley Cooper, obviously the great Boomer Esiason. I've seen Vinny Guadagnino from the Jersey Shore as well, when they used to have the pharmacy downstairs. And I used to have a lot in this area, and so in our Tribeca studios. And I ran into him once walking his dog, and he was getting something from the pharmacy. So since Bradley Cooper knows the area and also knows Philadelphia, I don't know if you remember this, Stu. Like a year or two ago, he partnered up. Oh, and you would know of this place, Angelo's, the cheesesteak spot that I told you to go to. which you thought you had bad traffic, by the way. How long did it take you that day when you were going from New York City to South Philadelphia? What, you were seeing some soccer game and then you were seeing a Yankee-Phillies game?
Yeah. It was the Yankees-Phillies first, and it was like late morning, early afternoon. It took me like 3 hours to get there. 3 hours. And it's usually like a 90 to 100-minute drive. Yeah.
So I got to get more clarity on this tomorrow when he joins us. But I heard him say it yesterday with JR. Hot take Hickey, he went to the Penn State-Ohio State game. He stayed 3 miles from the stadium. The traffic was so bad, Stu, 3 miles. And I asked him if he was exaggerating. He said no. He said he'd be dead serious. They got in their car at 8, 3 miles away. He had to leave his parents' car to walk to the stadium because they were going to miss the start of the game. He said his parents were late when they left at 8 a.m. and they were staying 3 miles away because the traffic was that bad and it was so backed up. 3 miles, it took him almost over 4 hours.
Wow.
To get to the state. I don't get how that's why I didn't want to follow up with him too much. But I was like, you got to be exaggerating. He's like, I'm not kidding at all. He goes, my friend had hour tickets or something like that, and I had to go meet him, and we had to get out of the car because we were going to miss kickoff. And he goes, my parents got in a few minutes after the first quarter because, first quarter started because they had to go park the car. I have traveled on Route 1 for Patriot games, which is a mess after the game. And there's sometimes you're not moving for an hour before you start moving out of there. But going to a game and you're 3 miles away, if you tell me 30 minutes with some traffic, 40 minutes, okay. And hey, we're the kings of traffic here. There are times where it's you'll take a 2-mile Uber in the city and it'll be 50 minutes. But I've never heard of someone taking, for only to go 3 miles, 4 hours. That's just absolutely bonkers. But anyway, Stu, to get to my point here. So a few years ago, I guess Bradley Cooper teamed up with the people at Angelo's. I don't know if he has an ownership stake in it or whatnot, but they were serving those cheesesteaks in a food truck that he created. And I read that they're actually bringing Bradley Cooper and the owners of Angelo's, they're bringing one up here to the city. And I just saw a video. I don't know when it opens. I didn't know where it was opening, but it's a video in New York City. And I know where this location is because it's 5 to 10 minutes from our office walking. Because that basketball court that sometimes has the guy doing the TikToks with the crazy trick shots?
Yes.
And it's not that far from where the Comedy Cellar is and all that stuff. I see that basketball court, and across the street in a building that has graffiti on the front of it, typical New York. But then you open it up and it's a really nice looking bar. And it looks not that far away. Maybe another month and a half from being open. But if that's the case, and we could get Angelo's in New York City, for crying out loud, Stu, you won't have to sit in traffic. I'll walk over there with you and buy you the cheesesteak. And you will finally get your cheesesteak. And I'm assuming it's going to be done right. I don't think this is going to be one of those something in resemblance or a knockoff that it's that stinks. It's not like the Angelo's in Philly. Maybe it won't be as great as the OG, but I'm going to assume it's a pretty high level quality of cheesesteak.
I guess in that case, my sins of going to Pat's and Gino's will be forgiven.
Yes,
at that point.
We will forgive you for going to the tourist trap. It's not the worst thing you've ever done. And I understand and I'm receptive to the predicament that you were in and the frustration that you were in. But when you know me and you know my place in Philadelphia and my expertise with cheesesteaks, and I gave you recommendations that could have filled up our entire studio, the fact that you went to Pat's and Gino's, I'm not going to lie, Stu, it was the most disappointed I've ever been with you. I wasn't mad, Stu.
Just disappointed.
I was just disappointed. All righty, 6 minutes past 4 o'clock here on the East Coast. Let me just do a quick little refresh because sometimes these deals come on in late. But let's just see if Adam Schefter, that's the preeminent NFL insider, Ian Rappaport, Tom Pelissero, Jay Glazer, one final trade at the deadline. The Texans have traded defensive tackle Khalil Davis to the 49ers in exchange for a 2026 7th-round pick per sources. The Rams are trading Tre'Davious White and a 2027 7th-round pick to the Ravens for a 2026 7th-round pick. So that's what you got right there. But I think the three biggest deals of the day had to be who the Commanders acquired, who the Lions acquired, and then who the Steelers acquired. And if I had to rank those moves, I think the biggest trade of the day in terms of compensation had to be the Commanders making a pretty large move to go get Marshawn Lattimore. And they needed help in that secondary. But here's what I like what the Commanders did. Sometimes when you're ahead of what the plan is, you just stay where you are. Like, hey, we're 7-2. We could win the NFC East right now. What we're doing right now, it's working, so we're not going to be aggressive here. Because we didn't even expect, if they're being honest, us to be this good this year. But when you do that and you sit on your thumbs, I think it sends a bad message to the locker room. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that the season would go down the drain. But when you go acquire a player like Marshawn Lattimore that boosts up your secondary and you give up significant draft capital to go get him, it kind of just sends a message to the locker room. We're rewarding you guys for the heck of a start. We believe in this team, and we think this team could go on to do something special this year. And we're not just fine with what's happening right now where everyone's patting you on the back. So here were the details of that deal. The Saints, they are receiving a 2025 third-round pick, a 2025 fourth-round pick, and a 2025 sixth-round pick. And obviously the Commanders got a fifth-round pick in 2025 and Marshawn Lattimore. Good move by the Washington Commanders, a team where the NFC East, let's be real, the Giants stink. The Cowboys, according to Jerry Jones, Dak's going to go on the IR. You know, that's what they're expecting. So he'll be out for 4 games with that hamstring injury, which, by the way, Stu, I don't know if you realize this. How bizarre was the reporting on that? Because during the game, he's sitting there with the busted open hand, the cut hand, and he looks so frustrated. And they're even zooming in on the broadcast with the camera on his hand. And then they go to the sideline report, and they're like, the Cowboys just announced that Dak Prescott's out with a hamstring injury. You know, that was bizarre. And sometimes, hey, you can't always spot the injury. But when you have a guy that, you know, I don't want to sound dramatic, but he was kind of like gushing blood or noticeable blood out of his hand, I wasn't anticipating, Stu, that there was going to be a hamstring injury there. I don't even know when he suffered the hamstring injury, if I'm being honest.
No, I didn't know either until they showed, afterwards. But, yeah, it's just not good.
Yeah, not good at all. So the Cowboys are a mess. The Giants are a mess. So, the Eagles can still win that division. But I'll tell you this, even with the talent that the Eagles have, I trust Dan Quinn more than I trust Nick Sirianni. I do. And I know Dan Quinn choked away that Super Bowl and all that. But Sirianni is just reckless as a head coach. He really is reckless. I know they made the playoffs 3 times, but he has been reckless in the last year and a half as a head football coach of that team. And Jalen Hurts is really good. Jaden Daniels, though, is looking phenomenal so far. And I feel good for Terry McLaurin. So that's going to be a fun race there. Eagles and the Commanders to see who wins that NFC East. Now, here was the deal that was the worst kept secret. All right, I've been saying go get Max Crosby. Right, try to do that if you're Brad Holmes and the Lions. F those picks. Be like Les Snead, who you worked under. You know, and then Myles Garrett was never a name that I considered until Mike Tannenbaum had that dopey trade proposal of, 3 first-round picks, Jahmyr Gibbs, and a second-round pick, which is just way too much. But you always felt like there was a safe option out there. And Za'Darius Smith isn't a star, but he is a good, bona fide, legitimate pass rusher who has 5 sacks on the season. And Cleveland ends up getting Za'Darius Smith or trading him to the Lions. So they trade Za'Darius Smith and a 7th-round pick to Detroit for a 2025 fifth and a 6th. You know, that's a solid deal. That's a good deal by the Lions. If you couldn't swing big and get, a preeminent top-of-the-line pass rusher, Za'Darius Smith's a good veteran player. I like that move for the Detroit Lions. I wouldn't have mind if they found a way to go get somebody else as well, just to kind of help you out if Smith gets hurt. But that Lions team, with the way that they're playing on offense with Goff and Gibbs and Montgomery and St. Brown, and you got Laporta behind that behemoth of an offensive line, you don't need that defense to be great. I think that's a misnomer. You just need that defense to make serviceable stops, and they are more than capable of doing that. And then you look at the Steelers. I actually think this is a quiet, good move for the Steelers. So the Steelers have been trying to get a number 2 wide receiver for a while to complement George Pickens. They tried to get Ayuk. And I think Ayuk wanted to go there, but the 49ers clearly didn't like whatever the return was coming over from the Steelers. And obviously Ayuk's now done for the season. So even if he got there, he would have been out for the year, assuming if that same injury did go down the way that it did for Brandon Ayuk this year with the San Francisco 49ers. They've been in on other receivers as well, and they've always been a team that we speculated could be trading for a wide receiver. But I think what the Steelers just did right now is kind of make a low-risk, medium-sized reward in going out there and acquiring Mike Williams, who is a good wide receiver, but Aaron Rodgers just finds a way to tune people out. And he tuned out Mike Williams when he threw him under the bus a few weeks ago, when he didn't like the route that he ran, and he's talking about the red line and all that nonsense. And the Jets, it's like, sure, you knew the targets were going to go down for Mike Williams because you got Devontae Adams, you got Garrett Wilson. But if I'm the Jets and you're still trying to turn this season around, even if Mike Williams isn't happy, I'm telling him, tough luck. Stay there as the third wide receiver. But sometimes teams just aren't capable of that. And I guess the Jets kind of respected Mike Williams probably preferring to get out there. And the Steelers end up giving the Jets back a 5th-round pick. But Mike Williams, he's a good player, man. It's just, can he stay healthy? And how much gas does he have left in the tank? But I still think he could be a productive wide receiver. And now he's going to be the number 2 wide receiver for the Steelers in an offense where I don't love Russell Wilson, right? Najee Harris and Jalen Warren are fine. You got George Pickens, where I think his biggest struggle is up here. We know what he could do physically. And you got Freiermuth, the tight end. The Steelers are 6-2. I don't think anyone looks at the Steelers and says, hey, they're a Super Bowl contender. I think they're a team that is playing better than where they should be at, but that's what Mike Tomlin does, and then they'll eventually lose in the first round of the playoffs. Maybe they pick up a playoff win this year, which they haven't done since the 2016 season. But I actually commend the Steelers for not breaking the bank, not doing anything reckless, but they did improve their team by going on out there and try to improve their offense by getting Mike Williams. So those are the 3 big moves, or somewhat big moves today, that move the needle at the deadline. I will say this. I think the thing to watch moving forward is you saw some receivers get traded within the last 2 weeks, right? Amari Cooper to the Bills, who was out last week. Devontae Adams to the Jets. Now Mike Williams to the Steelers. You had Deontay Johnson to the Ravens, who did nothing in his debut with Baltimore. It's like out of those teams, the Bills are a contender. The Jets, they still got to do more before I could put them back into my mind of thinking that they could go make the playoffs. But Adams stepped up and made a big play late in that fourth quarter up against the Texans on Thursday Night Football. I think Deontay Johnson was a smart move by them. Like, he could be a good player. I don't think he's a number 1 wide receiver like he thinks he is. I think he's in between a 2 and a 3. But Zay Flowers is having a strong season. You got Likely, you got Andrews, you got the stud in King Henry at the running back position. You got Lamar Jackson, who's playing at a great level. You have some of those other receivers, like you still got Aguilar there. You got Rashad Bateman as well. So I don't think it's a bad move in adding depth. I would have liked it to be in a little bit of a bigger name than Deontay Johnson. But as long as Amari Cooper could stay healthy, I think from where the teams we expect them to go and the players that they brought in, I actually think Amari Cooper is going to be the best deal out of those wide receivers. Devontae Adams is still the best wide receiver. But I'm talking about the best deal because if he could come back and be healthy, I think that will open up the offense. He even saw it in his debut where it opened things up for Keon Coleman, who's now dealing with an injury. James Cook is a really good running back. Ray Davis has been solid for them this year. But it's just a body in there, a veteran body that causes teams to pay more attention to. And then you can see a guy like Dalton Kincaid get in the end zone. But with Josh Allen calling the shots, they got enough there. I do think they have enough on the offensive side of the ball to get to the Super Bowl. Now, their defense got to have to make some stops. And up against the Seahawks, their defense did a good job 2 weeks ago. But when you go up against Mahomes and the way that they run the football with Kareem and when they get back Pacheco, can that run defense be up to par? That will ultimately determine how far the Bills go because even though the Bills have retooled on the offensive side of the ball, if everyone stays healthy, which is a big if, the line's good enough. I like the 1-2 punch of wide receiver with Cooper and Coleman. Kincaid's a solid tight end, and then you got 2 solid running backs in James Cook and then also Ray Davis as well. So I like that move of Amari Cooper, probably the best out of the deals that went down at the deadline. And then, hey, if Zadarius Smith could just get a timely stop in the fourth quarter and a third down in a playoff game, then, man, that's going to be a heck of a move for the Detroit Lions. Imagine going, like, you get traded from Cleveland, and it's not like usually with the perception out there, even though they started to turn things around, you're like, oh, anywhere we go is going to be great. But now you get traded to Detroit, and it's like a destination. Now it's like a place where you actually think that you could go win a Super Bowl with what the Lions have done in the last year and a half, 2 years, with Dan Campbell really as their head football coach. All right, we'll take a break. I'm still disgusted by Todd Bowles last night. I thought he coached to not lose, and he ended up losing the game because of that. And Baker Mayfield had a certain mentality that was like, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to go out there and win. We'll do Baker or this quarterback when we come on back. Stu will give me a quarterback, and I will tell you if I'd rather have Baker or that quarterback that Stu's going to mention. Coming back in 5, it is the Zach Gelb Show.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. 15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back to the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network.
So I saw that Adam Schefter just put out the final 2024 trade tally. Stu, usually we would never get any trades. And that obviously has changed throughout the years. If you had to take a guess, how many total trades do you think went down in the last few weeks?
I'll say 10.
Okay. 19.
Wow, okay.
I wasn't expecting it to be that high.
No.
There's some players that get traded, you're like, okay, who gives a rat's ass about? But this is incorporating all those trades, including all those trades. So Marshawn Lattimore to the Commanders, Devontae Adams to the Jets, DeAndre Hopkins to the Chiefs. You know what? We just talked about the wide receivers a few moments ago. I forgot about Hopkins. And I said this at the time. Shame on the rest of the league for allowing that to happen. You saw Hopkins have 2 touchdowns last night. How you allowed DeAndre Hopkins to go to Kansas City, it's like if you're Baltimore, any of these other Buffalo, any of these teams that are contenders, why wouldn't you just match the little return that Kansas City had to give up? And look what you saw last night, 2 touchdowns for DeAndre Hopkins. He actually could be the biggest difference maker now that I think about it, because that team's going to be getting healthier. You'll get Juju Smith-Schuster back. You'll eventually get Isaiah Pacheco back. Kelsey will start to play. I know he had a good game last night, really good game last night. But he'll start to pop off when the games actually matter. You got just Kareem Hunt's looking good each and every week. DeAndre Hopkins, he will win them a playoff game this year. There is no doubt about that in my mind. So I still would say Cooper is the biggest move because it opens up that offense. But when you look at the receivers that were traded, but Hopkins, man, it feels like Kansas City, as long as he can stay healthy, he's going to be someone that's going to be getting fitted for a Super Bowl ring, or at least an AFC Championship ring. I'm still holding out hope that Baltimore or Buffalo could take them down and the Lions could beat them in a Super Bowl. But geez, DeAndre Hopkins, he's just got to be like a fat kid in a candy store right now. So Marshawn Lattimore to the Commanders, Devontae Adams to the Jets, DeAndre Hopkins to the Chiefs, Amari Cooper to Buffalo, Deontay Johnson to Baltimore, Mike Williams to Pittsburgh, Preston Smith to Pittsburgh, Zadarius Smith to Detroit, Khalil Davis to San Francisco, Jonathan Mingo, hey, at least the Cowboys did something, which they really shouldn't, but he goes to Dallas. Josh Uche to Kansas City, Cam Robinson to Minnesota, Tre'Davious White to Baltimore, Baron Browning to the Arizona Cardinals, Cam Akers to Minnesota, Khalil Herbert to the Cincinnati Bengals. I think that's a solid move. Ernest Jones to Seattle, Roy Robertson Harris to Seattle, and Jerome Baker, potentially the touchdown maker, to the Tennessee Titans. So there you go. That is on that front for the trade deadline, according to Adam Schefter. All right, cue up my music, Stu. NFL music. Here's the game. Baker Mayfield or that QB? Who would I have more confidence in leading my team moving forward? Stu has assembled a list of many names. What do you got?
All right, what about a quarterback that only has 1 interception thrown this year? Obviously, the talent is there. Justin Herbert.
I'd rather have Justin Herbert over Baker Mayfield, and I kind of wish that Justin Herbert would have that killer instinct that Baker does have, but Justin Herbert is a more talented quarterback, and he's a better quarterback, and also he is finally being put in a position to succeed because that other guy, Brandon Staley, he was a complete bozo as a head football coach. Now you have one of the better coaches in the league in Jim Harbaugh coaching up Justin Herbert. So I will go with Justin Herbert.
All right, what about someone who is injured right now, but they signed a big deal this offseason? What about Dak Prescott?
I'd rather have Baker Mayfield. And I think people are going to be like, Zach, what are you talking about? Dak's a better quarterback. Yeah, you could tell me that Dak is a better quarterback and a better statistical quarterback than Baker Mayfield. But I'll tell you, I think there's a desire that Baker Mayfield has that needs to be injected into the body of Dak Prescott. And I'm not saying that Dak's a bad leader, and he does a heck of a job having to manage Jerry Jones and the dysfunction that Jerry Jones brings, and he's kind of just been immune to it. But you never really feel all that confident that Dak's going to get the job done with the game on the line. Like last night, I felt confident when Baker got the ball back without Mike Evans and without Chris Godwin that they were going to put the ball in the end zone. And it was a shame that his head football coach just didn't have the guts to go for two and try to go win the game. So I do think Dak is the better quarterback, but I just kind of like Baker better than Dak because Baker has that effort mentality that I wish Dak Prescott would have.
All right. What about someone who has obviously also had some injury issues but had 29 touchdowns last year in Tua Tagovailoa?
I'd rather have Baker Mayfield. Now, if you think about it, they're in similar spots where I get it. Baker does not have an offensive-minded head coach, but you got two heck of a wide receivers in Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, right? And I know Evans is out right now and Godwin's out right now, but on paper, that's a scenario. And then we know Miami has maybe the best wide receiver 1-2 punch in the league in Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Baker Mayfield, first year in, career on the line, right? No one believing in him. He won a playoff game. So this guy has won a playoff game in Cleveland and has won a playoff game in Tampa Bay. I don't know if Tua Tagovailoa is ever going to win a playoff game. And unfortunately, you have the concussion history with Tua Tagovailoa. And that plays a factor. Tua's next concussion could be his last, play in the NFL. And that's always a conversation that's never going to go away with how public those concussions have been. So I'd rather have Baker Mayfield over Tua Tagovailoa moving forward.
All right. Would you rather have Baker Mayfield or the soon-to-be 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers?
Because of the age and him playing on one leg and him not being able to put together a full game yet this season, like he was dreadful. It looked like he was about to retire at halftime, and then he found the fountain of youth and went 15 of 18 in the second half. But if I was a Jet fan right now and you say, would you rather have Baker Mayfield or Aaron Rodgers? I would rather have Baker Mayfield. I think he's a better teammate. I think he's a better leader. And I think even though Rodgers is going to the Hall of Fame, Rodgers is a first ballot Hall of Famer, he's a top 10 quarterback of all time, and Baker Mayfield will never be that. I think right now in the year of 2024, I have more confidence week in and week out with a guy like Baker Mayfield than I do with a guy like Aaron Rodgers.
All right, would you rather have Baker Mayfield or Russell Wilson?
I would go Baker Mayfield. Like, if you imagine putting Baker on the Steelers. That would be something, I think, for Steeler fans to see. But if you put Baker Mayfield, Justin Fields, and Russell Wilson in the same locker room, who would have won that QB battle? I think if it was a fair and honest quarterback battle, it would have been Baker Mayfield. I think Russell Wilson just won the quarterback battle because of his status and what it was in the league. And I know that Justin Fields, ended up starting the year because Russell Wilson got hurt. And Russ has been fine with the Steelers. But out of those three quarterbacks, in the year of 2024, I think the player with the highest ceiling is Baker Mayfield.
All right, would you rather have Baker Mayfield or the 2023 Offensive Rookie of the Year, C.J. Stroud?
C.J. Stroud. C.J. Stroud has elite potential. I know he had a stinker the other night up against the Jets where the offensive line was terrible. He did not play well in Green Bay this year at legendary Lambeau Field under 100 passing yards. But what C.J. Stroud did last year showed elite potential, top 5 potential in this league. Even though I do believe Baker Mayfield is an underrated quarterback, he's never coming anywhere close to sniffing being a top 5 quarterback in this league.
All right, would you rather have Baker Mayfield or fellow former first overall pick Trevor Lawrence?
Trevor's a weird one, man. Because year one, you blame it on Urban Meyer. Then year two, he got Doug Peterson. They won a playoff game in that epic comeback up against the Chargers, and then he was going to Waffle House after that. Last year, he didn't have a miserable season, but he got hurt, and they crumbled down the stretch. But this year, it's been a disaster. An absolute disaster for the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they were driving somehow, someway, because Nick Sirianni's a dope. They were driving to go win the game. And I know Nakobe Dean made a heck of a play, but you throw an interception in that spot when you had no business in being in a position to win that game. And look what Baker just did. He marched down the field in Kansas City up against a better defense, and he put that team in position to go win the game. He tied it up. Coach should have let him go for 2. With 2 first-round picks that have struggled in this league and have had their moments, I think Baker is the better quarterback than Trevor Lawrence.
All right, would you rather have Baker Mayfield or someone who has made a Super Bowl in his past, Jalen Hurts?
Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts has elite potential. He's a top 10 quarterback in this league. Last year, he didn't play like it down the stretch. But, yes, I'd rather have Jalen Hurts, who has been to a Super Bowl. And we know, even though Baker beat Jalen in a playoff game last year, I do think Jalen Hurts has a higher ceiling in this league than Baker Mayfield.
All right. Would you rather have Baker Mayfield or soon-to-be Offensive Rookie of the Year, Jaden Daniels?
Jaden Daniels, younger, obviously more explosive with his legs. And let me tell you, that arm is really something with Jaden Daniels. There is a reason, even though I'm very happy with my guy Drake May right now, and I'm believing in Drake May with the Patriots, but there's a reason why I wanted Jaden Daniels over Drake May, and I wanted the Patriots to get the second overall pick in the draft. But how Jaden Daniels just turn around that franchise in year one, with that team having a good chance and right now being the leader to win the NFC East, yeah, I'd rather have Jaden Daniels over Baker Mayfield.
All right. Would you rather have Baker Mayfield or the person who has the fourth most passing yards in the NFL right now in Kirk Cousins?
It's a heck of a question. Because Kirk's a better regular season quarterback. And Baker has had more moments than Kirk in the postseason. I think Kirk is just a better quarterback. I think both guys are actually pretty similar, right? Like Baker, I think, is a more vocal leader and he's a more polarizing player. Kirk, like everyone just likes Kirk Cousins, but I do think he is a good leader. I look at Kirk Cousins as being like a calmer, better version of Baker Mayfield. I would take Kirk Cousins over Baker Mayfield.
Would you rather have Baker Mayfield or someone who's been considered a game manager in Brock Purdy?
Oh, boy. Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
If Baker's on, and I don't want this to come off disrespectful to Brock Purdy because I've been complimentary to Brock Purdy, but if Baker Mayfield was on the 49ers last year, did they get to the Super Bowl?
I'd feel a lot better about Baker Mayfield getting to the Super Bowl than Brock Purdy.
Oh, a lot better.
Yeah,
okay.
I would.
I'll say slightly better. I think that the right answer here is Baker Mayfield. You know, Brock, like you watch Brock play, he is a gamer. And I think he's better than people give him credit for. But his worst game this year and his worst moment this year was up against whom? The Kansas City Chiefs. And last night, we saw Baker Mayfield, without his two top weapons, look pretty damn good up against the Chiefs. So I would go Baker Mayfield over Brock Purdy.
Would you rather have Baker Mayfield or the quarterback of the team that many believe is the best team in the NFC in the Detroit Lions and Jared Goff?
Up until this year, you can make the case if I'm saying that Baker Mayfield's the most underrated quarterback in football right now, and you could have said last year that it's Jared Goff. You may still be able to say it. Those could be the two most disrespected quarterbacks in football are Baker Mayfield and Jared Goff. And it's nice to see Baker Mayfield get some praise this year, and it's really nice to see Jared Goff get an abundance of praise. Obviously, I'd rather have Jared Goff, who has been to a Super Bowl, has been to 2 NFC title games, has brought back the Detroit Lions. He's an efficient quarterback. I'd rather have Jared Goff over Baker Mayfield.
All right, and last one. Would you rather have Baker Mayfield or Jordan Love?
Jordan Love. Now, we saw a great second half last year, and he suffered injuries this year. But that second half, right, you had people at the end of last year saying Love could be the best quarterback in the NFC. So I would go Jordan Love over Baker Mayfield. All right, a good segment right there. This is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We'll come on back. We'll update you some of the biggest stories in the world of sports with some audio. We will get to a news brief next. Update time first. Here is the Ackman, Rich Ackerman.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
Well, the NFL trade deadline has passed. The Commanders pushing their chips into the middle of the table with the biggest move of the day, acquiring Pro Bowl corner Marshawn Lattimore from the Saints, along with a 7th-round pick for a 3rd-rounder, 4th, and a 6th. And the Lions, trying to fill the void left by the injury to Aiden Hutchinson, to that end, acquired Zadarius Smith from the Browns, along with a 7th-rounder for 5th and 6th-round draft choices. The 32-year-old 3-time Pro Bowler has 5 sacks in 9 games this year. The Rams sent defensive back Tre'Davious White to the Ravens. The Cowboys acquired receiver Jonathan Mingo from the Panthers for a 4th-round pick, but it won't be Dak Prescott throwing to him immediately. He's down with a hamstring injury, and owner Jerry Jones told 105.3 The Fan that it's going to be a while.
I wouldn't dare make a prediction when it could be. It's likely we'll IR him, and so we'll see kind of how his rehab goes.
The NBA has the night off for Election Day, which has been the case the last few years, while the NHL has 11 games on its schedule tonight, including the Winnipeg Jets. Winners of 11 of their first 12 will host the Utah Hockey Club. I'm Rich Jack.
Hey, like us on Facebook. Our handle is INF Sportsnet. That's INF Sportsnet for our Facebook page. This is the Infinity Sports Network.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. 30 seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back to the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network.
The Defensive Player of the Week is sponsored by the Navy Federal Credit Union, who proudly serves the Armed Forces, DoD, veterans, and their families. Their members are the mission. Learn more at NavyFederal.org. And this week's player is Bengals pass rusher Trey Hendrickson in Sunday's blowout win over the Raiders. Hendrickson had 4 sacks and forced a fumble. On the year, Hendrickson currently leads the NFL in sacks with 11. We got breaking news here on the show. The NBA is suspending Sixers Joel Embiid. 76ers Joel Embiid. Here's the statement that I'm pulling up right now. Philadelphia 76ers center Joel Embiid has been suspended for 3 games without pay for shoving a member of the media. It was announced today by Joe Dumars, the executive vice president, head of basketball operations for the league. Embiid's action took place in the Sixers locker room after the team's 124-107 loss to the Memphis Grizzlies on Saturday at the Wells Fargo Center. Mutual respect is paramount to the relationship between players and the media in the NBA, Dumars said. While we understand Joel was offended by the personal nature of the original version of the reporter's column, interactions must remain professional on both sides and can never turn physical. Embiid's suspension will commence with the NBA's regular season next game, for which he is eligible and able to play. See, that's kind of the funky thing about this. Because when this first came out, I was like, and Samter told me about it in the break, I'm like, oh, so they're just going to have him sit out for 3 games, and who knows when he was coming back anyway. But now he's going to have to be eligible to play. Like, can you just be like, oh, I'm eligible to play? And then you just serve the 3-game suspension. So Marcus Hayes wasn't in the right, and Joel Embiid, I'm not going to say he was in the wrong here, but you got to know that you can't have this be physical. Like, just undress Marcus Hayes, and just yell at him. And you know what's crazy to me? And maybe this was because from what I heard, the Sixers kind of told like everyone that was in the locker room, because it was wide in the open, the media was there, like, hey guys, we appreciate it if you don't report about this or put anything out there. Now, like, let's be real, that's not going to happen. But how none of this video that I've seen, at least, got out yet is crazy to me. And I don't think it was a punch. I think it was a shove. But like, if Joel Embiid punched Marcus Hayes, there'd be some physical damage there. But on just the shove, like, yeah, you can't have that happen, but how vicious was the shove too? Now, here's where Marcus Hayes is in the wrong. And he instigated this. Because you could be critical of an athlete, right? Like, we're all critical of athletes and coaches. But I think there's a way to go about it, and you don't get personal. And in Marcus Hayes' article, he touched on a personal situation for Joel Embiid that has been well documented. And quite frankly, if I was Joel Embiid, and this was written about me, I'm not upset about the criticism of me, but you don't bring up my son or my dead brother. You just don't do it. So this was the article that was written. I'll read you the 2 paragraphs. This is Marcus Hayes. Joel Embiid consistently points to the birth of his son, Arthur, as the major inflection point in his basketball career. He often says that he wants to be great, to leave a legacy for the boy named after his little brother, who tragically died in an automobile accident when Embiid was in his first year as a 76er. Well, in order to be great at your job, you first have to show up to work. Embiid has been great at just the opposite. Now, in his 11th season, he consistently has been in poor condition. This poor condition apparently seemed to have delayed his debut this season, and Embiid won't play in Wednesday's opener or the next 2 games. So I think if you're Marcus, like if I'm writing this article, all you write is, Embiid has aspirations to be one of the best players ever. He has aspirations to leave a legacy of greatness that makes everyone proud of him. That's all you have to write. Period. Stop. And then you could throw in, well, in order to be great at your job, you first have to show up to work. and then, right, everything you did. But there was no need, and it was completely unnecessary. And I know Marcus. I have no issues with Marcus. When I see Marcus in like passing at games and stuff, always cordial, nice guy to me. But there was no need, and I think Marcus knows this. And I guess he apologized for it in the locker room. And I give credit, Marcus, right? You write something, you show up the next day. What he wrote was stupid in that line. But there was no need to bring up his son, off limits, and then his dead brother, really off limits. Like, that was low class, if we're being honest. So, I understand the NBA has to suspend him. I get Embiid's reaction. If you would have just mother bleeped him verbally, that would have been it. But once you get physical, then the NBA has to do something. They have to. So, that's that on the entire Marcus Hayes, Joel Embiid situation. But Joel Embiid suspended now for 3 games. You know what? When Embiid's out for 3 games, they shouldn't let Marcus Hayes cover the team for 3 games. I think that'd be like a fair one-off right there. Because, like, Marcus, you did instigate here. You kind of deserve what happened. I'm not saying deserve to get shoved, but you deserve for Embiid to be upset with you. So maybe you got a mutual suspension there. Marcus Hayes out for 3 games. All right, let's update some of the biggest stories in the world of sports with some audio. We get to a news brief.
Time for your daily news brief. We get you caught up on the rumors, reports, and reconnaissance from the day in sports.
All right, let's listen up to Todd Bowles on why he was basically a putty cat last night and didn't go for 2.
Very minor. We wanted to get it to overtime with the wet conditions on the field. We felt like we had to go into overtime instead of go for 2. So we had our shots. We lost the game.
I haven't heard that yet. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And that's not hyperbole. Because of the wet conditions, we felt like we had to go into overtime. So in those wet conditions, Todd, if you lose the coin toss, your defense has to stop Patrick Mahomes. Then you have to get the ball back, and you still have to move the ball down the field and then make a kick, potentially, or put the ball in the end zone to win the game in the wet conditions. Instead, I don't know, your team just scored a touchdown easily. All you need to do is convert from 2 yards out and then make a stop. What seems easier? I'm not a head football coach. You don't got to pay me millions and millions of dollars to make that decision. Clearly what's easier is going for 2 and then trying to get the stop. That was just stupid. And I mean stupid from Todd Bowles. Here's Patrick Mahomes and the ankle injury that he suffered that ended up not being a big deal.
I was obviously running for the goal line, was kind of committed to running the football, and at the last second saw Samaje, and so kind of awkwardly rolled the ankle a little bit. Definitely scary. I think it hurt more just because it's the same ankle I rolled last week. So it scared me a little bit, but once I kind of took my breath and kind of calmed down a little bit, ended up being not too bad. We were able to go in there, kind of get the respat, and go back on the football field.
It's amazing how he didn't miss a drive or a play. Serious. I thought he was done for at least multiple weeks. Jerry Jones on Dak Prescott's injury. Sean and RJ 105.3 The Fan in Dallas.
It's safety, but it's extended period of time here, so I wouldn't dare make a prediction when it could be. It's likely we'll IR him, and so we'll see kind of how his rehab goes.
So instead of Cooper Rush, would you consider starting Trey Lance, Jerry Jones?
Let's just don't dismiss the possibility of doing anything. And the going with has a past tense aspect to it that I wouldn't recognize. It's not impossible to incorporate some of the skills that we might get from both quarterbacks.
Can I just get a yes or a no? Or an I don't know? That was all the above right there. So I have no clue how to read into that. Let's get to Micah Parsons on what Saquon Barkley has been doing with the Eagles and the blame that he's thrown to the New York Giants. The Edge with Micah Parsons.
For Saquon, this is a blessing in disguise, just off the strength of people are seeing what you're capable of when people appreciate you. The Giants did not appreciate him. And now the rest of the league is facing the consequences of the Giants' stupidity. I mean, what more can you say? The guy's been dynamic. He's been worth the money and more. Let's just say thank you to the Giants for their stupidity and what they accomplished in the last couple of years. But this is always who Saquon's been.
The Giants offered him a fair deal 2 off seasons ago. He didn't take it. And once that deal didn't get accepted, they were never getting a deal. I think both sides are ready to move on. And where the Giants are, I don't fault the Giants for moving on from Saquon Barkley. If he didn't go to Philadelphia, no one would be talking about it. Like if he was with the Texans right now, I'd be like, oh, good player, but it's a little bit more personal when it's Eagles and Giants. Here is Micah Parsons on the state of the Cowboys.
Man, it just seems like injuries just kicking our butts this year. And now it just starts with our, our heartbeat of the team, our QB1. What I would say is we've been here before. I've been here before. We can overcome this. We've been better. Yeah, the record is 3-5, but, there's a bunch of games here where you say we could have won if we done the things the right way. And we got a chance. They always say it's not over till the fat lady sing. And I ain't hear her sing yet. I ain't hear her sing once yet.
Well, Micah Parsons, we have an exclusive guest on the Zach Gelb Show. I have booked the fat lady. There you go. Can I hear the fat lady? Hey, fat lady, one more follow-up. Is the Cowboy season over? Where the heck did we find that sound effect? But I appreciate the fat lady. Good to see you. Don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you on the way out. But the fat lady, if she can even fit through the door when she leaves. Basically saying rest in peace to the Dallas Cowboys. And then finally, real quickly, here's Shedeur Sanders unofficially announcing he's going to the NFL.
Hey, real quick, listen up. 8:30 a.m. registration. 8:30 a.m. No one is to miss. So we got that?
Registration what?
Wait, for what?
I said voting. I'm going to the voting. So we got to be here. We just submit it.
I'll be in the league.
Boy got registration, man. Hey. Coming back next year.
Hey.
Boy got registration.
Do not wish that on me, man. Hey, registration. I know after last game, man, y'all not going to see me.
I love that. I thought as well when I first heard the clip, they're talking about, you're going to go vote tomorrow. Instead, they're talking about registering for classes. And Shedeur's like, I'm going to do the Shedeur Sanders. I'm going right to the league. Like, there's no reason for me to register for classes, as he will easily be a top 5 pick in this upcoming NFL draft. That's a news brief. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. 60 more minutes to play. Thomas Dimitroff will recap the trade deadline with us on the other side. We will also do a little overreaction, proper reaction at 5:20 p.m. Eastern time, and then we will preview the college football playoff rankings reveal that's going to come your way later tonight. We'll do that. All getting started 5 minutes from now. Final 60 minutes on a little Tuesday edition of the Zach Gelb Show gets started in 5 minutes.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Alrighty, hour number 3 of our radio program. That's right, it is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. Fun show so far. We led the show talking about how Baker Mayfield is underappreciated, and it would have been nice if his head football coach in Todd Bowles would have matched his intensity last night. Didn't like the decision by Todd Bowles to not go for 2 and to kick the extra point when he had a chance to basically put his team in position to win the game. Maddux Madsen, the quarterback at Boise State, did join us. And they are having big expectations, not only Ashton Jeanty trying to go win the Heisman Trophy, but also that team, they are ranked 12th in the country right now, and they have the inside track on being that one non-power conference champion representative in the college football playoff. We obviously recapped the trade deadline and just talked about some of Micah Parsons' comments as well, saying the fat lady has not been singing yet on the Cowboys season. Even though it appears, and it feels like to me, that the Cowboys season is pretty much already over and not a lot of optimism with the Dallas Cowboys. But we got a trade deadline to recap, and we'll do so in a few moments with the former NFL general manager Thomas Dimitroff from Sumer Sports. He's ready to go and joins us right now. Thomas, always great to have you on. Appreciate you doing this once again. How you been?
Zach, what's up, man? Everything good?
Yeah, everything's great. I can't complain. You know, I'm watching the game last night. There's a lot of things that I could comment on. We'll get to the 2-point conversion or what didn't happen in a bit. But I'm watching this game, and I'm like, DeAndre Hopkins, here we go. He's just popping off. He gets the 2 touchdowns, and I'm thinking to myself, how do the other GMs that are contending allow him to go to Kansas City for a conditional 5 that turns into a 4? Like, if you were a GM on a contending team, even if you didn't need a wide receiver, wouldn't you just do it so he didn't go to Kansas City?
That's a great point. I mean, what is he, 10-plus receptions now, adding to like this powerhouse? I get what you're saying. I don't know what you could do. Could you head him off in the pass and not let him get there? That's maybe what you could do. Maybe try to do the flat tire thing. He's going there, right? Brett Veach, look, brother, Brett Veach is really good at what he does. They're putting together what they need to do and get another power guy in there. I think he's got another, 2 or 3 years. I don't know where you are with that. He's a special receiver still. I do believe it.
Yeah, no, I still think he could obviously play in this league. And, you find the fountain of youth. We saw the Patriots for all those years, bringing all those guys that look like their career was shot. You know this. And then you get to play with Tom Brady, and magical things do happen. But, I don't know, you've been in those conversations. You have a player, isn't Tennessee calling the other team saying, hey, Kansas City's about to give us a conditional 5 for a 4. You just give us a 4 straight up, and boom, you get DeAndre Hopkins. That's the way that I look at it from afar.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of that going on. Now, some people aren't as creative with that. I don't know Rand. I know Rand Carthon well. He worked for us before. I don't know what their approach is there, right? They might have slow played it in a certain way. Some people don't like GMs to be talking about their business. So there's a little bit, hey, I don't want this out from the next team, whatever it may be. So you kind of have to be aware of doing that, right? Even though it sounds right to approach it the way you're doing it, some people are really particular about the secrecy of their deals.
Thomas Dimitroff here with us. I love what the Commanders did today. They had a need. This team has overachieved this year, and sometimes when you overachieve, teams just stay put. The Commanders were like, nope, we're going to be aggressive, and I think they send a good message to that locker room that we got a lot to accomplish this year by going out and acquiring a player like Marshawn Lattimore.
I love the approach. This is quintessential Dan Quinn, right? They are not just a team that's saying, hey, we're building well and we have a few wins and we like where we're going. Let's add this guy. They are building for now and they're building for the future. And I love the momentum here. We know what's going on the offensive side. Defensively, 20 EPA. They're not the best from the defense. Even though I think they're 4th or 5th in sacks, they need coverage help. They bring a guy like this in, injuries aside potentially. This guy's legitimate. I know they gave away some legit booty, brother. That's a 3rd and a 4th. I know they got something back. Adam Peters is going to have to answer to the owner, basically, and Dan Quinn. They would go to the owner in a situation like this, Zach, where they'd say, look, we're giving away really interesting pick compensation, but we're getting a guy that can be a difference maker. Even though there may be some corners in the draft coming up that are, maybe better value, they are not necessarily the players that this kid is. And I think it was a smart move. Continue to build with some really good, smart veteran talent. I love what they did.
Now, from afar, it's easy to just say, hey, they got the quarterback, Jaden Daniels. They have a new owner. That just uplifts that organization clearly from where they are. But I'm happy you bring up Dan Quinn, who you know well from the time that you guys worked together in Atlanta. What makes him a coach that's capable of turning a team around that quickly when you just get away from the quarterback and having a new ownership group in there?
Yeah, I think a guy like Dan Quinn comes in. He is all about positive, passionate, and persevering through and through. Alliteration, I know, brother, but that's what he is. He loves boxing. He loves fighting. He loves being in a spot where they had to kind of build themselves out of where they were. And I think he came in there knowing that it was a little bit downtrodden, and he was going to take his true passion and his true energy, and he was going to instill that in his team. That is what Dan has done. You know that. People believe. There were a lot of people throwing darts early on, like, do they have the talent to win more than half the games? It's very clear. And I know it was Dan Campbell who said it recently, not Dan Quinn, but I am sure Dan Quinn is saying inside the building, we can beat any team in the National Football League. I believe he believes that because that's his mentality. And I think that's what the team is believing. There's so much belief in a quarterback, and they have people rising to the challenge, right? The running backs are running hard. I love where they are right now. That is Dan through and through. He's authentic with his team. and they see that he's willing to go the distance for him.
Yeah, and you know what? It is a feel-good story for someone that doesn't have a dog in the fight, because you know this, right? You could have a really good career in the NFL with what happened in the Super Bowl. That's a moment that everyone's going to think about when they look back at careers. To see Dan kind of have like this good start and restore how people believe in him and acknowledge that, hey, this guy's a good head coach. It's a feel-good story with what happened in that Super Bowl.
But he's surrounded himself with really good football coaches. And again, people can throw their darts on a coordinator that over the years they weren't sure, where he was going. But obviously he's come in. They paired very well with an excellent athlete, probably a rare athlete, a guy that can make the throws everywhere. We know all that. So he feeds off of that. I just think Dan has been really good, along with Adam Peters, in taking it all in and capitalizing where they're good. And now making a move like this, showing everyone we are not looking back. We are looking forward. And we're riding this momentum train. And that is, again, DQ.
Thomas Dimitroff here with us, now with Sumer Sports, was a great general manager in the NFL for a bunch of years with the Atlanta Falcons. I look at the Detroit Lions. To me, pound for pound right now, they're the best team in football. I know the Chiefs are undefeated. Their offense is awesome. We talked about this last time you came on. They needed to go get a pass rusher. They weren't able to get Max Crosby. Didn't seem like the Raiders were interested in trading him. But you get Zadarius Smith. I think it's a low-risk, medium-sized reward for a defense where you don't need that defense to be great. You just need them to make timely stops and make a few stops with how awesome your offense is.
Yeah, to lead off, I don't know if Mark Davis is going to allow me in his suite. I was so outspoken about having him move Max Crosby, and I said it because I have a great belief in that guy because I think he's such a difference maker. So they're very fortunate to keep him there. That's great. When you talk about Zadarius Smith and going to Detroit, I was hoping Trey Hendrickson was going to go there as well. What an idea to bring in a legitimate pass rusher. I'm saying that Zadarius is he's obviously in a different spot in his career. He's a 6-sack guy. What is he? Does he pull off another 2, 3, or 4? Maybe. The way that defense is playing and the way that they're being coached, you never know what's going to happen there. When I first started talking about Zadarius going there, I was thinking, is this a little bit different, but sort of same with Matthew Judon and what the Falcons did? They're getting a guy who's 30-something, but he's playing some good football, and he's got 6 sacks. Judon, I think, only has 1.5. So I think there's for that team right now to bring in someone, I think it sent also a message, Zach, to the team, similar to Dan Quinn. We have everything in front of us here. And as long as we have one of the best offensive coordinators in a long time, that's my pitch, of course, for Ben Johnson. He's not going to be there next year. They better ride this train as well. Let's get Zadarius in here. Let's continue to grow here, right? Meaning let's get our defense growing. Maybe their star guy comes back. Didn't they say he could get He might
Super
heal
Bowl,
if they got to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's what his family threw out there to a local radio host, Stoney, who's been there for a bunch of years. But hey, I think the Lions will be in the Super Bowl, and I'm not questioning the heart and determination of Aiden Hutchinson. But it's one of those things. It's no one wants to have your star pass rusher hurt, but I'll kind of believe he returns when we actually see it this year.
Well, that's a great point. And back to Zadarius' last thing, Zach. I think it's always important for the team inside the locker room as well as the fan base, even though as GMs, we like to say we don't do anything for the fan base because we're myopically thinking about what to do right. Everyone needs to be realistic about what Zadarius is bringing to the table, right? He's not coming in. They're not expecting another 8 or 9 or 10 sacks, right? Let's know that he's there. He's going to be really good to help them in certain ways. But let's not get out over our skis thinking that he's going to have massive amounts of sacks. And if it doesn't happen, Brad didn't make the right move. Brad Holmes, I'm referring to. Of course, they made a good move here.
Let's just be real. I don't care what he does in the regular season. Just go be vintage Zadarius Smith in the postseason. That's how you win this trade. That's, to me, all that matters for this Detroit Lions team. Wrap it up with Thomas Dimitroff. Does a great job now with Sumer Sports. So you mentioned Ben Johnson. Everyone thought he was going to be the Commanders coach last year. Obviously, he took himself out of the running to be a head coach, and he wanted to go back to Detroit. It seems like a foregone conclusion now that he's going to be the next coach of the Bears, which I think would be a tremendous hire by the Bears with a young quarterback like Caleb Williams. What are your thoughts about Johnson potentially being the next head coach of the Bears?
Well, look, I hate to project into a team, of course. I mean, to your point, this guy, he was on everyone's top of everyone's list. And what I was thinking recently, I had this conversation. I don't remember the exact number, Zach. Wasn't it $20 million he's going to be raising his hand like, look, it is what it is. I have a lot of money coming my way. And if you all want to get in the sweepstakes, you are going to have to nut up and be legitimate on the money they're putting out there. He's going to take over a team. Now, he's a very smart guy. He's not going to come in there and be without the ups and downs of a head coach. He's going to make sure he surrounds himself with the right people, the right coaches, right? I think that's really important. And if it happens to be Chicago, it will be really interesting to see how he pairs with Ryan Poles, the general manager there.
Yeah, and here's the other thing. Like, a coach like Belichick obviously knows the standard. Vrabel, established. When you're a coordinator, and we've seen a lot of hotshot coordinators before that get praised and go on to be great, and we've also seen others be disaster. Like, as someone that's a part of the hiring process, how do you get a read if a coordinator is going to go on to be a great head coach?
Well, I think there are so many elements that you're interviewing when you're looking at that guy. It's not just the fact that he's almost on the lines of brilliant. I don't throw those words around that easily, but he is very special, and we know that. You also have to look and see what is his true leadership talent and his prowess to take men and bring them into the battle, so to speak, and let them, help them be the best that they can be. That's something that we don't know yet, right? Through all the interaction with people, you take all of that in intelligence and all of the creativity. This is where it's important for him to make sure that he gets the right staff around him, especially in those early years, Zach. And that's a big thing. When you're talking about putting together a staff, it's not just sitting back as a GM and an owner and saying, okay, young coach, pull your staff together. Everyone comes into the interview, by the way, Zach, with a list of who they think are the best coaches to be on their staff. You and I know that's not realistic. They might get 30% or 40% of that staff at the most. So it's really important to drill down on these other factors that you're not sure about to see if that guy is the full package guy.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think you've ever worked with him. So is it just what you've been seeing from afar, what he's done in Detroit, or is it just people like friends in the league telling you how much of a rock star this guy could potentially be?
You're right. I have never worked with him from afar. He's got a lot of positives in a lot of different ways. It again is, where is it when everything hits the line, how he factors. That's not just through the interview, as you know. It is the feedback from a lot of people and the players' feedback as well. And that's going to be an important thing. Again, it's imperative that you're surrounding a head coach that comes in like that with the right talent. They have a really, really good group of talent there. You know that without getting too much into the Bears. So if you're projecting in a situation like that, it's good. Like you want a young quarterback to have the right people around him. I think you want a young coach who is really smart with the right personnel around him. And I think they have a legit chance. Look what happened last thing with Matt LaFleur when he goes to Green Bay, right? He's heralded as one of the better coaches in the league right now. Coming in, people weren't sure where he's going to be that way. Sure. Surrounded with the right people. Brian Gutekunst does a great job with him, helping him build the team, and I think that's important.
Last thing I'll ask you, Thomas Dimitroff from Sumer Sports. So Belichick, I think, will be back next year. Vrabel, I think, will be back next year as a head coach. We talked about Ben Johnson. I think he's going to be going to the Bears. I'm fascinated by Brian Flores, and I know you know him, but he's doing a kick-ass job with the Vikings. You know, he did a good job in Miami. Obviously, him and the quarterback had issues. I know you have the issue with the lawsuit right now at the league, but if I'm an owner, and let's say you get, 6, 7, 8 jobs that could potentially open up once again. We already know the Jets are open. We already know that obviously the Saints are open after yesterday. Like, I'm seriously considering hiring Brian Flores, and I would be disappointed if he doesn't end up getting a job in this cycle as a head coach again.
I would be disappointed as well. I mean, he's kicking complete butt there, right? I love watching his defense. I know that there's going to be some people throwing their darts about how he handled things and how he handled some of the personalities. I think when head coaches get their next opportunity, they sit down. Brian is a very smart, thoughtful person. So he's going to look at all the things that he did really well. He's going to look at the things that were challenges. That's what Dan Quinn did. Dan comes back in and he's looked at the things that needed to be adjusted. I am sure, back to Brian, when he gets that opportunity, that he's going to look at things with a really clean lens, and he's going to be smart about how he approaches his football team.
Yeah, and you were around Belichick. I'm not saying that he's going to go on to be Bill Belichick, but, the Browns job wasn't his finest work, even though he did win a playoff game there. And then look at the coach that he turned out to be, getting a second opportunity as a head coach.
Well, we know Bill, arguably is one of the top 3 coaches ever in the history of the world in football. Talking about Lombardi, and we're talking about Paul Brown. He is right up there. And This isn't just Mike Lombardi's ratings, even though I respect Lombardi's ratings. He legitimately is that. He's going to come back in. He's going to turn an organization around. We all know that. I said it time and again, and you guys get sick and tired of me hearing it. I don't think there's another coach out there that can bring you to the Super Bowl in the next 3 years like Bill Belichick could. That's my take.
He is Thomas Dimitroff from Sumer Sports. Tell us about all the latest you guys got cooking with Sumer Sports.
Hey, look, we are so focused right now. We have a number of really good NFL teams who are our clients. We're doing some NCAA work as well. So we're pulling everything in. We're growing. Last time we probably talked, we probably had about 40. We're about 65, 70 strong data scientists and designers and systems people. We have 5 former general managers on our staff. So we have a really strong evaluation staff that provides us with our IP. And we're really excited about what we're doing with all of our algorithms. I say this to anyone. You come in, you supplement properly with the data that's out there, and you're a good or a very good football man. I think it takes you to a completely different level as a team builder, as a GM, and a head coach.
Last one, because I actually lied to you. I said last question 2 or 3 questions ago, but one more thing popped up into my brain. Travis Hunter at Colorado, if the team that has the number 1 pick that doesn't need a quarterback is picking one, he could be the first overall pick of the draft. We know he plays both ways. What would kind of be your evaluation of him and how you would view him as a player? Do you play him as a corner and as a wide receiver, or do you think that teams will ultimately make him pick one or the other?
I think, he's going to come in there, obviously, with his background with Dion, and he's going to feel like that's where he should go. I think a team's going to come in. They're going to focus on the one position that he might thrive in, and they'll sprinkle him in at the other position early on until they realize that he could thrive in both situations. Obviously, he's a rare athlete. He's got a presence about him, and it was fun to watch. And look, he's from just up the street here outside of Atlanta, and so I think this whole city is watching closely to see where he ends up being. If you think, in fact, he's going to go one of the top 3, it will be interesting to see who lands him because he's going to do special things for him athletically for sure.
He is Thomas Dimitroff from Sumer Sports. Thomas, appreciate it as always.
Always. Thank you, Zach.
There you go. Thomas Dimitroff joining us on the show. I also love, by the way, I think it was when we were talking about Ben Johnson. He was like, someone's got to nut up for him. I've never heard a guest say that, but I absolutely love when Thomas Dimitroff joins us, and I got a good chuckle out of that one. All righty, we will take a break. We'll come on back. We'll do a little overreaction, proper reaction. It is the Zach Gelb Show.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. $45 seconds remaining. $30 seconds remaining. $15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Another NFL week is complete, which means it's another week to freak out about your favorite team. Which takes are truly crazy.
But sometimes a game can be so bad, it's almost good. You know what I'm saying? No.
And which are so crazy, they might be right.
He's 6'5", he's 245 pounds. He's probably a Popeye's biscuit away from being a tight end.
Zach lets you know in this week's edition of Overreaction or Proper Reaction.
Stu, I'm going to ask you this question first. An overreaction, proper reaction.
Okay.
As we know, the Raiders have fired offensive coordinator Luke Getsy yesterday. And today, reports surfaced that longtime OC and head coach Norv Turner will join the team as an assistant. Today, Zach Gelb's best friend, former NFL general manager Mike Lombardi, and former QB, some guy I actually like, and Rich Gannon, had harsh words about Antonio Pierce.
I mean, it's really not good. The product on the field is bad. The fans are frustrated. They've had enough. They want to fire everybody. You know, at some point, you have to look at the whole operation. I'm hoping that that's what's going to happen at the end of the season. I can't imagine that Antonio Pierce will be back next year.
Mark's got to make a decision. It needs to be a complete remodel, and Antonio Pierce isn't qualified to remodel a living room, let alone a franchise worth $8 billion.
Hey, Mike. Why are you qualified then to give an opinion with how you were as a GM with the Browns? But I won 3 Super Bowls in other places. Overreaction, proper reaction, Stu. The Raiders should move on from Antonio Pierce.
He has not been perfect. He's made a lot of mistakes this year. I don't think he's done a great job, but I think that's an overreaction. I think they've done this too much where they've had a coach for a year and a half, and they move on too quickly. I think you give him a chance with hopefully a quarterback of the future and a better roster in the coming years.
So I will agree with you. I will say it's an overreaction because the question is the Raiders should move on from Antonio Pierce. Now, if the question was, will the Raiders move on from Antonio Pierce? It's different what should happen and what will happen. do you think they will move on from Antonio Pierce?
I still think they won't, but I think the chances of them actually doing it is more likely than should they do it.
Here's why I think they will. And I didn't even consider this yesterday when we were talking about potential coaches that could get fired. I just thought Pierce would be back, right? You don't usually, I know we've seen some one and dones, but you don't usually see it happen a lot. Remember when Rich Gannon joined us in the offseason and I threw out there the possibility of Devontae Adams getting traded? And he gave what felt to me like a very team response, like, why would you want to get traded? The grass is always isn't green on the other side, and who knows how much longer Aaron Rodgers could be playing in this league. I think Gannon being so adamant about Antonio Pierce, either he doesn't like Antonio Pierce, which I'm not saying that Rich Gannon can't dislike someone, but Rich Gannon's a really good dude, like really likable guy, or he knows enough people in the organization where they're like, hey, this is a disaster. Like, even though people know we're just bad, it's even worse than what's getting painted and showed to the outside world. So since Gannon had such a strong take about it, Stu, I kind of think that there's a lot of legs to Pierce getting fired, and I would lean more he does get fired than he doesn't.
It's interesting. He does seem to be very plugged in, I feel like, Rich.
And even with how many times there's opportunities to trash the Raiders, like, I feel like with them, he doesn't always do that. That's why when he does do it, it's kind of like the antenna's up, the eyebrow definitely is raised. All righty. Now you could start to ask me the questions. I almost read you the second question. I'm like, that's not how this is supposed to work.
Well, speaking of the Raiders, Tom Brady, he was officially approved as the Raiders minority owner.
I think he's the best minority owner in football already.
Okay.
I'll just say that. I haven't really evaluated all the minority owners in football. Magic Johnson may have a thing or two to say about that with the Commanders, but all right, we can continue.
Obviously, there's a lot of strict stipulations that he cannot criticize officials during his Fox broadcasts. However, on Sunday, Brady had some harsh words about the refs in the league for ejecting Brian Branch for an illegal hit.
It's going to happen. You wish they wouldn't, but the reality of the sport is these guys are playing hard. They're trying to get their team an aggressive style of play.
Whoa!
Wow.
So they just threw out Brian Branch, who's one of their best defensive players, and that came from New York. Wow!
I don't love that call at all. I mean, obviously it's a penalty, but to me, there has to be serious intent in a game like this.
All right, well, today the league announced that Brady would not be fined for his comments. Good. So overreaction or proper reaction, Brady should have been fined for those comments.
Should have? Overreaction. Should have. See, the NFL doesn't always usually use their brains, but I'm glad that they did here. Like, to me, if you're criticizing the officials, just saying, I don't like that call in a very monotone voice doesn't warrant, like, a suspension. If Brady got in front of the microphone and was like, that zebra is a moron, he's an idiot, he's a dope, it's one of the worst calls I've ever seen in the history of the NFL, I would appreciate that as a listener, but then knowing what his rules are, all right, I'm fine throwing then a penalty flag on Tom Brady. But just saying, oh, I don't know about that, I don't like that call. Like, if that's the case, then the guy can't be a broadcaster. But I'm glad, like, just common sense played out with the NFL, which usually never follows common sense. Because if Brady got fined for that, hey, he could afford it, right? We know that. He has a $375 million deal with Fox, and we know how much money he made during his playing deals, even after doing the admirable thing and taking all those discounts for all those years. But, yeah, I have no problem with Brady not getting fined for that. If that's the case, then just hang up the microphone and walk away. Like, seriously. Next question.
There appears to be a major rift growing between Bears head coach Matt Eberflus and the players, or at least with one player, and that is Captain DJ Moore. Now, after Moore's lukewarm, quote, I want to say no, end quote, response if Eberflus has lost the locker room, video has surfaced of Moore literally walking off of the field in the middle of a play while Caleb Williams scrambled for his life. After the game, Eberflus seemed to have played dumb when asked about it.
I'm not sure the exact play, but I do know that one play that he stepped out of bounds, and I think the side judge threw his hat out. He was out. So I believe that's what happened. Again, I'll have to watch the play specifically, but I think that might be the play you're talking about.
So are they taught to, in that situation, just stay off the field then from that point on, just to eliminate any confusion?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what it was.
So overreaction or proper reaction, the Bears should strip more of his captaincy after the video.
So basically, one side says he's hurt. Other people are questioning the effort, right? That's tough. Here's the problem with DJ Moore. Even though he signed an extension and he's a good dude, I just don't think he wants to be there anymore. And I talked about this. He was so outspoken in having Justin Fields as the quarterback. Now, having Caleb Williams over Justin Fields is a better option. But he was so outspoken about that. So how are the two of those guys going to mesh? How are they going to gel? And now you have not only this situation, but you have the situation where I think he's speaking for Bears Nation, where they're like, hey, has Matt Eberflus lost the locker room? And he goes, I want to say no, which is basically him saying yes. I think this is just a bad situation. And when you have the wrong coach in place, yes, you would expect leaders to uplift, but I think it's a tough thing to do. I'm not going to sit here and advocate with this being a very questionable video and not knowing which way I really sided that the Bears should strip him of his captaincy after the video. So I would say that's a slight. I could see the side of it, but I would say that's a slight overreaction.
All right, and last night's loss to the Chiefs, Bucs head coach Todd Bowles decided to go for an extra point and the tie at the end of regulation rather than going for two, and a chance to beat the two-time defending Super Bowl champs on their home turf. So overreaction or proper reaction, Todd Bowles should have gone for two.
You know, here's what I realized in the last 2 days. People are really bad at arguing. Like, horrible. So yesterday, I do this whole rant, which I've done like 3,000 times, about James Franklin at Participation State University. And some guy, some jabroni, some clown, try to go all Jason Kelsey-like on Twitter, basically goes, well, who would you hire if you get rid of him? I don't hear a good name out there. And then any name you give isn't good enough. Like last year in October, I was advocating for Kalen DeBoer to be the next head football coach at Penn State. He ended up getting the job at Alabama and had Washington in a national championship game. So the other day, I'm like, oh, Cignetti. That was the first name that I thought of. And they're like, oh, well, why would he leave Indiana? Because it's Penn freaking State, all right? It's not like Indiana is this great job, Indiana football. They're a basketball school, even though they've been rock stars this year in football. And here's the other thing. It's not like there needs to be a slam dunk name out there in order to move on from James Franklin. Like, how many young coordinators, like the Georgia defensive coordinator, who knew Dan Lanning was going to be this great coach when he got to Oregon? So it's like this idea that you can't fire James Franklin because he's good, not great, is jackassery to me. And then in this case, here's why this set me off today. Well, Zach, even if Todd Bowles goes for two there and they get it, do we really think Mahomes isn't going to get them into field goal range? And I know it's easy for me to say, well, they didn't get into field goal range when they had the ball in a tie game. But yes, like obviously, no bleep, Sherlock. Can you have a situation where you go for two and then Mahomes walks right down the field and gets a field goal? It's still a chance right there where you put yourself in a better situation than what happened to go win the game. And Bowles after the game sounded like a dope. And that's a Temple guy me going after here. When he's just like, oh, well, considering the situation with how wet the field was, that's why we thought kicking was better. Like, huh? So you want your team to do so many more things in wet conditions instead of just 2 yards out trying to score after you just put the ball in the end zone. So you asked me, Todd Bowles should have gone for two? Yeah. Proper reaction. That's just people. Learn how to argue better. And I hate that we put ourselves in, what happens if this happens? What happens if that happens? Give me another name. Or what happens if... Okay. Fair questions. It doesn't mean that the first part was wrong. Doesn't mean that the first part was wrong. All right, ask me the final.
Then Chargers, then the Steelers, and then the Cowboys, 3 of which are on the road. So overreaction or proper reaction, the Bengals will make the playoffs.
And this is in the now. What I think right now.
Yes.
I think that's an overreaction. You go win on Thursday night against the Ravens, I will change that stance. But the Bengals have to show me a little bit something more than just beating the Raiders, stink. The Giants, stink. Browns, stink. Panthers, I'm just doing this for my guys Mac and Bone and WFNC, suck. Like, those wins stink. So go beat a really good team in Baltimore. Where last time your quarterback threw for 5 passing touchdowns and it still wasn't good enough. You lost the game in overtime. So I got to see more out of the Bengals before I say they make the playoffs. So that will be an overreaction. All righty. That will do it for overreaction, proper reaction. We'll come on back. We'll talk a little bit about what to look for tonight's election. I'm sorry, not election. Trade deadline already passed. College football playoff rankings. That's what I'm looking for. We'll do that on the other side. Update time. Here is the Act Man, Rich Ackerman.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
Well, it's been a tough start to the season for Joel Embiid, who has sat a couple of games and will now sit 3 more. He's been suspended without pay for shoving a member of the media several days ago. The NBA, of course, has off for today because of Election Day. The NFL trade deadline passed a short time ago. The Commanders jumped in, making a big move, acquiring Pro Bowl corner Marshawn Lattimore and a 5th-round pick from the Saints for a 3rd, 4th, and 6th rounder. Washington is currently 7-2, a half game in front of the Eagles in the NFC East. Lattimore, though, is recovering from a hamstring injury. The Lions also making a big move, acquiring 10-year veteran Zadarius Smith from the Browns, along with a 7th rounder for 5th and 6th rounders as he tries to make up for the absence of Aiden Hutchinson. The Cowboys have a lot of issues at 3-5, and it starts with their quarterback, who is likely headed to injured reserve due to his hamstring injury. As Jerry Jones said on 105.3 The Fan earlier today, that Dak Prescott is likely headed to IR. The Cowboys also made a move to add depth at the wide receiver spot, picking up Jonathan Mingo from the Panthers for a 4th-round pick. And the Bears sent running back Khalil Herbert to the Bengals with Zach Moss done for the season. I'm Rich Ackerman.
The Infinity Sports Network is on your smart speaker. All you have to say is play Infinity Sports Network.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 2 minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Hey, this is Howie. And this is Nick. We're the Backstreet Boys, and you're listening to the Zach Gelb Show. And guess what? Zach is back. All right.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Oh, my God, we're back again.
All right, wrapping up shop. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. So I know everyone's awaiting tonight for the big results. And that, of course, is the College Football Playoff Committee is going to have their rankings come on out. It's not Donald Trump or Kamala Harris. Soon I'm going to get phone calls. Zach, why are you talking politics on this show? I'm not talking politics on this show. I'm not a dummy. I know sometimes I sound and look stupid, but I'm not stupid. I know the college football playoff rankings tonight are so irrelevant. Number one, it's 12 teams that get in. So it's not the same buzz and exuberance that there was with the rankings when it was 4 teams that get in. And also, I think on most people's mind, obviously, it's tracking of the election tonight. Now, Stu, I have a little predicament here.
Ooh.
During the show, and I'm not a political guy whatsoever, but I enjoy the coverage on election night when you got that Kornacki guy going nuts. And also, I've enjoyed the debates because I don't really have a dog in the fight. I'm not really a political guy. I'm not Democrat. I'm not Republican. I pick the person who I think is in the best interest of leading our country, right? That's how I do each and every 4 years or however, when you go through the process. But I think it's funny to just watch the coverage, and I enjoy watching the coverage. And I understand it's very serious for a lot of people, so I don't want to come off as disrespectful. But with all that being said, I got invited tonight to a steak dinner with a good friend of mine, and he is bringing a very famous person with him to said dinner. Now, the dinner is at 8 p.m., should go for about 2 hours or so. Now, I don't know if we're even going to know who necessarily wins tonight anyway, but then I'm going to miss the majority of the coverage. Do I go to the dinner? This is like getting invited somewhere on Super Bowl Sunday, It's like, do I go to the dinner or do I watch the election coverage? Just wondering. I think I know what I'm going to do here.
I think it would help if I knew who the person was, but is it like like how big of a name is it?
Top 100 basketball player of all time.
Okay, that's pretty big.
Yeah. Top 100 basketball player of all time. I know the person that has invited me to this dinner. I don't know, I know who the basketball player is, but I'm not friendly with him. So it was just funny when I got a text right before the show, hey, call me at some point during your show. I have a dinner that I want to invite you to tonight. Do you want to try to guess who the basketball player is?
Sure. Patrick Ewing.
It is not Patrick Ewing. More present day. More present day.
Okay.
It's a good first guess.
Vince Carter.
Close.
Tracy McGrady.
No. Good guess, though. We've had T-Mac.
Allen Iverson.
Not Allen Iverson. You're getting colder. You are getting colder.
Jason Kidd. No, he's a coach. That'd be dumb.
Not Jason Kidd. Well, the NBA is off tonight, right?
True. Yeah.
So it's not a terrible guess. I'm pretty this guy's a top 100 player. On that list that they did. He had to be. Oh, it was top 75, was it?
Yeah, they did a top 75.
Oh, did he? Yeah, he had to have.
Chris Webber.
No, you're getting colder. New York roots. Yeah, he is. He was. What do you think? Come on. You're
New
close.
York roots.
New York roots. I could sing a song that would give it away. You want me to sing the song?
Yeah, I'm drowning here.
I'm coming home.
Oh, Mello.
Coming
home. That's right. I forgot he
Tell
made the top.
the world
Yeah.
that I'm coming home.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I got an invite tonight from a buddy of mine. And he goes, hey, I'm going out to dinner tonight with Carmelo Anthony. I want you to come. I'm like, why the heck do you want me to go? I go, yeah. He goes, are you interested? So I told him, it is election night. You know, I always got to set it up as if, even when someone's doing a solid for me, hey, you know, I may have plans, but it is election night. You know, a lot of coverage. It's also 2 blocks from my apartment, the steakhouse. So I'm going to go. I'm going to go have dinner tonight with Carmelo Anthony and eat some steak that's out on my dime. So I appreciate that invite.
Sounds like a great night.
So if you are a friend of mine that's listening, you have my cell phone number. That's a friend of mine, not just someone random. You know, if anything crazy goes on in the election world, feel free to drop me a text. I'll be like, hey, Carmelo, pass the shrimp cocktail and the steak with the steak sauce. Oh, by the way, this just happened in the election. So I have no clue what I'm going to talk about with Carmelo Anthony, if I'm being honest, but definitely down to go to that dinner tonight. Okay, college football playoff rankings come on out. Here's going to be the confusing part about these rankings still. So I guess from what I gather, they're going to give the top 25. But like, for example, let's say if Ohio State's 3 and Oregon's 1, they then have to give the bracket. Because the way that it works, for people that aren't familiar with this, 5 conference champions get automatic bids to the college football playoff out of the 12 teams. Only 4 get buys. So how the rankings are and then what seed it translates to is, I think, going to be a little bit confusing to explain. It's like you got to give out the rankings and then you got to just put the bracket out there for the 12 teams right afterwards. Here's what I'm fascinated by. I am fascinated by Alabama. Because in the AP poll, they're in 11. Will they be a top 12 team? I'm also fascinated by how the committee is going to rank Indiana and Penn State. Because Penn State's 7-1, Indiana's 9-0. Like, I think Indiana, like when I do Take 5 Wednesday tomorrow, I will have them higher ranked than Penn State. But I don't think the committee is going to put Indiana in front of Penn State. But always remember, these shows are done to get a reaction. I know they're supposed to be true rankings, but the rankings right now on November 5th mean nothing. They mean nothing. So I'll be curious what the big talking point is this time tomorrow. If I had to take a guess, not what should happen, but what will happen, I think Oregon, when you put it into the bracket, not the rankings, I think Oregon will be your first conference champion, right, from the Big Ten. They'll have a bye. Then Georgia will be your second conference champion from the SEC. They'll have a bye. Miami, they won't be ranked number 3, but they'll be the 3 seed because they will be the ACC winner right now. BYU won't be ranked 4, but they'll be the 4th seed because they'll be the Big 12 winner right now. After that, I think Ohio State, once you get past the top 4 bye spots. Ohio State will then get the 5th seed. I think Boise State will be the 12, and Boise State will be the conference champion from the non-Core 4, Power 4, whatever you want to call it, ACC, Big 12, SEC, and Big 10. I then think Texas will get the 6th seed, and I do think the committee will put in Alabama because they beat Georgia, but they had 2 losses, right? They lost to Tennessee, who will be in, and then they had the bad loss to Vanderbilt. But I do think they'll just put Alabama in. So I have 11 Alabama going to number 6 Texas. Then I have 7 Tennessee hosting number 10 Notre Dame. Now, Notre Dame could be bumped up a little bit, but they did have that loss to Northern Illinois. But I think, right, if Notre Dame gets in with the loss to Northern Illinois and then Alabama in, even though they have 2 losses, with the loss to Vanderbilt, that would be like the committee basically just trying to cancel it out, like, in a weird way. And then I have Penn State 8. Not what should happen, but I think will happen. Penn State 8 hosting 9 Indiana. Which, even though I was against this 12-team format, and I'm still against it, I will say if those are the matchups on the, I know it's not the wild card round, but the first round, that'd be pretty damn good. Boise State at Ohio State, because Boise State lost to Oregon by 3. Ohio State lost to Oregon. Alabama at Texas. Hello, sign me up for that. That's going to be fun. Notre Dame at Tennessee. And then Indiana at Penn State. Oh, boy. I would be the biggest Signetti fan up against that fraud, James Franklin. So that will do it for the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We will be back tomorrow. Braden Fisk is going to join us from the LA Rams. Also, Hot Take Hickey. I don't know how we book him each and every week. He's going to join us in studio to react to the college football playoff rankings. We will not react probably to the election. And we will have a kick-ass show, do a little Take 5 Wednesday tomorrow. My top 5 teams of college football in the NFL. All right, talk tomorrow, everybody. We out. Bye-bye. Peace.